Chapter 763, Chao Xin's Plan. What does the report from Thunder Sound Temple say? Lin Qian asked. Chao Xin shook his head. Nothing, they have been very low-key recently. Yang Yuanhao is training his battalion. His Thunder Sound battalion has been expanded threefold. It probably will take some time to finish training. The name Yang Yuanhao caused Lin Qian's gaze to unnoticeably focus. He asked, have we found Yang Yuanhao's origins? Yes. He is originally the disciple of the second elder of Thunder Sound Temple, but he was not thought of highly before. When the Thunder Sound Shin methodology appeared, he was spectacular and rose up to quickly become the best battle general of Thunder Sound Temple and the best of the 9 Great Dhyana sect. However, this is already related to his master. The second elder is the younger brother of the sect leader. Chao Xin was unbridled in nature, but he was careful and attentive when doing his work and was deeply relied upon by Lin Qian. Other than Thunder Sound Temple, is our progress in the other temples going well? Lin Qian asked. Thunder Sound Temple, Splendid Buddha Temple, Venerable Lotus Temple, Laughing Maitreya Temple, it has not been smooth in these 4 temples. Heart Leaf Temple has been heavily infiltrated by Tianhuan. The one that we have made the most progress is Skanda sect. We are fighting with Tianhuan for the others, Great Buddha sect, Karma Temple, Surangama Heart sect. Chao Xin knew all this like the back of his hand. It is not easy to infiltrate the great temples. Lin Qian smiled helplessly. Of course. Chao Xin took a sip of wine and said unconcernedly. We first aim for the borders, it is easy at first and then becomes difficult later, this is the right way. However, Heart Leaf Dhyana sect's attack on Mo Cloud C's seal formations is detrimental to our actions. Yes, it inadvertently alerted them. Lin Qian frowned. They are a group of idiots. Heart Leaf Dhyana sect wants to show fealty towards Tianhuan and were impatient. I don't know who it was that found this weakness, but the skill of the mission was really terrible. No wonder Heart Leaf Dhyana sect is ranked last among the 9 Great Dhyana sects. Chao Xin shook his head and then said, but for Mo Cloud C, not being able to use the transportation formations is a noose around their throat. We also need to guard against this movement as we also have the same weakness of the transportation formations. Lin Qian nodded. Go do this. Chao Xin acknowledged. All right. However, none of them thought much of this as a great matter. The transportation formations were a weakness, but unlike Mo Cloud C who were overly reliant on the formations, Kunlun's transportation were mostly by Jie rivers. While they had to spend more time traveling, it was much cheaper. If Kunlun used transportation formations over all of its vast realm, then the expenses in this area would be enough to kill Kunlun. Due to this, most of Kunlun's transportation formations were set up in important places, and these places almost all had battalions stationed there to guarantee safety. They only needed to increase the security level of the battalion stationed there. After Shuesherdis battalion has finished expanding, why don't we use the 9 Great Dhyana sects as an opening? Lin Qian asked Chao Xin. Chao Xin said unrestrainedly, that is not good. Lin Qian smiled and poured another cup of wine for Chao Xin. He asked sincerely for guidance, then what should be done? The 9 Great Dhyana sects have many people with different intentions. If they feel an outside threat, they would abandon their own aims, unite, and face the invaders. Thunder Sound Temple is the strongest, and once they unite with a top battle general like Yang Yuanhao, they would be a hard bone to swallow. Lin Qian was thoughtful. Chao Xin raised his wine cup and threw his head back to drink. He was full of enthusiasm. But if we treat them peacefully, without threatening their existence, the inner conflicts will gradually become evident. We can scheme and recruit a portion of them, moving in the shadows. The 9 Great Dhyana sects will be defeated without any attack over time. This is the best plan. You are right. Lin Qian was full of admiration and then turned to another problem. Then in which direction should we expand? 100 Savage Realm. Chao Xin's voice was loud, a blush on his face. The Nether Realms produced a king, and is an enemy on the same level as us. We should not really fight them. Also, we know little about the Nether Realms, and it is not wise to enter. But 100 Savage Realm is full of warlords, and the best place to begin. As his interests were stirred, Chao Exin became half-dressed as he drank multiple cups. His gaze was intoxicated as he said slowly, looking at the world right now, Tian Huan, the Nether King and the Yao are enemies of the same level as us. They all possess one realm of land, have any experts and generals. But if one looks closely, there are differences. Kunlun, Tian Huan, and the Nether Realm were integrally united. The Yao Elder Council constantly fights internally for power. The new generation as led by Ming Yi and the older generation led by the Chief Elder are fighting in secret. This is an opportunity for our Kunlun. Lin Qian's eyes lit up. We will secretly support Ming Yi? Chao Exin smiled and then shook his head. No. Ming Yu's wings are not grown yet. Our benefit from supporting her will be limited, and once she is in power, the first thing that she will do is to reorganize the Council of Elders in order to get them to be of one mind, and then bite us. Then we will suppress Ming Yi? Lin Qian asked in response. We will support a third faction. Chao Exin was bright with light. 3 factions fighting is a state of equilibrium, and the one able to cause sustained infighting. Also, both the Chief Elder and Ming Yi will need to fight to gain support of the new faction. Most importantly, the third faction would be the weakest faction, and cannot break free of our control. Great plan. Lin Qian sighed. Chao Xin's excitement settled slightly and he said with a light laugh, we cannot rush this and need to plan this slowly. It will probably take 5 to 10 years for it to be effective. Lin Qian laughed out loud. I am still young. 10 years, I can even wait even if it is 20 years. Chao Exin nodded. It is not easy for Darren to have such a state of mind. Mo Cloud C has challenged the Mo Martial Alliance. Mr., what do you feel they desire? Lin Qian mentioned another topic. For some reason, he felt danger from Mo Cloud C. He always had a feeling that this little power that was just a few dozen jie would one day become his archenemy. This indescribable feeling of danger always made him extremely wary of Mo Cloud C's every move. It was unexpected to many that Mo Cloud C had suddenly started to attack Mo Martial Alliance. Chao Xin's brow also furrowed. It is slightly puzzling. This time, the main commander is Bihan. This shows how much importance they place on this campaign. It means that it is a big one. Also, it is Bihan and not Gongsun Chao. This also implies that their aim in the campaign this time is not to attack cities and take over territory, but more akin to rapidly destroying or capturing something. Bihan's battalions are also puzzling in their movements. Bihan is definitely disguising their intentions. We most likely will know the aim of a battle general of Bihan's level only when the battle is finished. Lin Qian was silent. Intentions? We need to find their intentions. Inside the conference hall, Hai Jin-yun's voice echoed. His figure was tall yet thin, his complexion faintly gold, his eyes narrow and long. His cheeks were sunken inwards, his gaze as sharp as a sword and seemed able to penetrate people. His voice was thin and high-pitched, giving people a feeling of metal grinding. At this time, it was filled with great fury. Hao Jin-yun's temper was easy to set off and he quickly became violent. The subordinates trembled, and the conference room was deathly silent. Hai Jin-yun forced down the fury inside. He rubbed his forehead. His anger was not directed against his subordinates. He knew their skill level. He was angry at himself as he could not identify Bihan's intentions. When he learned that the enemy this time was Bihan, an unprecedented pressure filled him. However, this had not caused him to collapse but rather stimulated his strong fighting spirit. He felt his blood boil at the thought of fighting against such a top-level battle general. Yet as time went on, the movements of Bihan's campaigns became even harder to understand. If they could not find Bihan's true intentions, he would end up the reactive party. Facing a battle general of Bihan's level, it was enormously dangerous to be the reactive party. Several hours passed, and he received an insect message from an old general, Quan Pei. They had encountered Bihan. This was not of great surprise to him. He would not be surprised at any action that a battle general like Bihan would do. Also, from the location of the encounter, Bi-Han seemed to just be attacking the reinforcements. Was Bi-Han's goal really Bright Mountain Jie? He didn't believe it. But what reassured him slightly was that old General Quan Pei said in the insect message that they were delaying the other by using guerrilla tactics against them in order to drag on the battle for them to arrive. General Quan Pei's seemingly conservative strategy was actually the best in his view. They were fighting on home territory. If they could take up enough time, their advantage would increase like a snowball rolling off the mountain. Yet 8 hours passed, and Hai Jinyun did not receive any more insect letters from old General Quan Pei. This unusual situation caused Hai Jinyun to have a bad feeling. If the situation was normal, Quan Pei's second-in-command would send an insect message every 4 hours to report on the state of the battle. There were only 2 possibilities when there were no messages after 8 hours. One was that the battle was so intense that they didn't even have the time to send insect letters. The other possibility was that they had been completely eradicated. Based on convention, the first possibility was most likely. Quan Pei was skilled in battle formations. If he decided to enter a battle of attrition by relying on guerrilla fighting, he definitely would not be destroyed so easily. It was extremely difficult to exterminate a battalion that had decided to fight in a guerrilla fashion, much less finish it in 8 hours. However, as time advanced, Hai Jinyun's bad feeling increased. His emotions started to become restless. He tried to put his attention on searching for Bi-Han's target. So many dazzling and spectacular actions proved that Bi-Han had a clear goal in mind. He was only disguising it. Where is Shang Darren? He suddenly stopped walking and asked. Shang Darren has already reached Bright Home Jie and is about 3 days away from us, the subordinate hurriedly said. Hai Jinyun suddenly stopped walking. There wasn't any restlessness to be seen in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, "Set up base here and wait for Shang Darren." 10 hours had already passed. Hai Jinyun knew that the situation he had thought most unlikely probably already became reality. Chapter 764, 9 Great Diana Sects, Heartleaf Diana Sect. Zuomo's expression was full of unfriendliness. He didn't have any good feelings about this sect who had suddenly attacked them and was said to be completely infiltrated by Tianhuan. While Heartleaf Diana Sect had taken out a great amount of evidence to prove that the dozen people who had attacked had been expelled from the sect long ago, anyone with eyes could see that this was just an excuse. Our goal this time is Heartleaf Diana Sect. Its mission is to settle the accounts from last time. No matter the time, Mo Cloud C is not one that would swallow and remain silent when someone bullies us. Zuomo's words immediately aroused similar feelings in the group. Motherfucker! A little Heartleaf Diana Sect dare to target us? They don't want to live. We will beat them up. Beat the up completely. Beat them until they kneel and beg for mercy. The large hall was immediately full of fury. People from Mo Cloud C never feared anything. They had fought against Kunlun and Tianhuan. They were proud and found it hard to tolerate a little faction like Heartleaf Diana Sect attacking them. However, since they dare scheme against us, then we will play with them. Everyone, prepare, we will depart tomorrow. We will make them understand why we dare to challenge Kunlun and Tianhuan while they can only play with mud in the corner. Zuomo's domineering announcement caused everyone's blood to boil. Soon, Zuomo started to pick people. The ones chosen were happy and the ones that weren't had displeased expressions. Soon, Zuomo picked out an elite team of about 50 people. It was not an exaggeration to say they were elite. Just looking at the membership of the team, it was possible to see how grand the composition was. Zuomo, Agay, Wei Sheng, Zhong Ru, Luo Li, Tseng Liana. He had picked almost all of the top experts of Mo Cloud C. The other people were also ones that had followed Zuomo for many years. They were loyal to the point they could use their bodies to block a blow for Zuomo. Other than this, Zuomo also took along the Lil ones that had just finished leveling up. Zuomo did not worry about the safety of Mo Cloud C at all. Lil Miss was in charge of Cloud C Jie, and the great majority of the transportation formations were closed. While it had affected their business activities, it also caused Mo Cloud C's security to reach an unprecedented level. Right now, Mo Cloud C was truly a turtle hiding in its hard shell. The ambush from Heartleaf Diana sect caused Zwa Mo to be full of anger. On the surface, Heartleaf Diana sect's attitude was very friendly. They apologized and also agreed to recompense them. If he led battalions to attack Heartleaf Diana sect when they had this kind of attitude, it was easy to cause all of the 9 great Diana sects to start fighting with Mo Cloud C. Zwa Mo was still hoping that the 9 great Diana sect would be Mo Cloud C's shield. It was not profitable to start fighting due to one Heartleaf Diana sect. Heartleaf Diana sect was fearless because they knew this. There was nothing to criticize on the surface. Little Emogu was never one that was generous. His style was to always retaliate for any slights. Since they could not fight in the open, they would fight in the shadows. For the leaders of the other factions, they could not avoid feeling slightly repulsed by these types of schemes. But for Zwa Mo, this was what he was truly skilled in. Purely based on power, Heartleaf Diana sect was not a match for Zwa Mo, but this time, they were playing in the dark. Wei Xing, Zhong Ru, Luo Li, they were all astoundingly powerful, and each of them could do things like kill people and defeat cities, but it was difficult for them to scheme. The one that was most skilled in scheming was undoubtedly Zwa Mo. Without his direction, this would not succeed. The 9 great Diana sect had always had a close relationship to Mo Cloud C, and the two sides had active business activity. The 9 great Diana sects had vast territories and were abundant in resources. Mo Cloud C's Shin equipment was something that the 9 great Diana sects needed. The transportation formations between Mo Cloud C and the 9 great Diana sect were one of the few transportation formations that were still in use. The inspection at the transportation formation was strict, but for Zwa Mo and the others, people that could see through their disguises would definitely not appear at the transportation formation. Without needing any great effort, they successfully entered the 9 great Diana sects. When they entered the land of the 9 great Diana sects, the scenery was completely different than that of Mo Cloud C. Both the buildings and the people around gave them a different feeling. Diana Shio revered secret paradises and little islands could be seen floating everywhere. There were also some Diana Shio that built the temples on top of lucky clouds. There were many temples, and the sound of bells and chanting were everywhere. In the streets, what was most common were the Diana Shio dressed in robes of all colors, walking about barefoot and bald. They held staffs, wooden fishes, had peaceful expressions. Some were half naked, their bodies like metal. These people usually had stern expressions, and their steps were powerful. Diana Shio were rare in Mo Cloud C. It was the first time that everyone had seen so many Diana Shio, and all of them found it interesting. The group disguised themselves as a merchant group. In order to not attract any attention, the manager and attendants were all real and experienced ones. They frequently entered the 9 great Diana sect and were experienced. When Xian Kong Temple had been here, this place was even more prosperous. The steward next to Zwa Mo said emotionally, in that period of time when Xian Kong Temple fell, all of Xian Kong realm was quiet. They have just recovered some vitality after development in these years. This place only became prosperous again because it has a transportation formation that is connected to Mo Cloud C. Which sect does this place belong to? Zwa Mo asked curiously. Thunder Sound Temple, the steward hurriedly responded. He knew that Zwa Mo did not know much about the 9 great Diana sects and introduced in detail, the Thunder Sound sect is first among the 9 great Diana sects. The best battle general of the 9 great Diana sects is Yang Yuan Hao, also of Thunder Sound sect. The development in its territory is the best, and it is the safest. Yang Yuan Hao. Zwa Mo couldn't help but still when he heard this name. Yang Yuan Hao was the strongest battle general that the 9 great Diana sect created in recent years, and was the true pillar holding up the 9 great Diana sects. The reason that Zwa Mo thought that the 9 great Diana sect qualified to be the barrier that could stop Kunlun was the existence of Yang Yuan Hao. The 9 great Diana sects that had Yang Yuan Hao was not at the same level as the 9 great Diana sects that did not have a Yang Yuan Hao. If they did not have Yang Yuan Hao, Zwa Mo would be the first to attack the 9 great Diana sects and swallow it before Kunlun and Tianhuan. Zwa Mo suddenly had a thought. If there was a chance, he wanted to meet this person that was one of the most important pillars of the 9 great Dhyana sects. He did not worry about Yang Yuanhao's enmity and wariness of Mo Cloud C. That could not be avoided. Yet Sui Mo believed that Yang Yuanhao could see the dilemma that the 9 great Dhyana sects were under. Compared to Kun Luan and Tian Huan, Mo Cloud C was undoubtedly a better ally. The 9 great Dhyana sect did not have many choices. Where is Yang Yuanhao now? Sui Mo asked. The steward had a strained expression. This one does not know. We do not dare to search for information like this. Sui Mo smiled. The steward was right. He had assumed too much. He changed the topic. How much longer until we can reach Heat Leaf Dhyana sect's territories? The steward said respectfully, if we use transportation formations, it will be about 20 or more days. Sui Mo couldn't help but gape. More than 20 days even with transportation formations, that was really far. Sui Mo decided that before they got to Heart Leaf Dhyana sect, they would not make any trouble. But after flying for 2 days, Sui Mo and the others detected people keeping watch over them. The observers were well concealed, and they had switched people in the process. If it wasn't that the people present were all experts, it most likely would be difficult to detect it. Sui Mo did not attack. He pointed at the secret observers and asked the steward, "Do you know where they are from?" The steward made a careful examination. His expression changed slightly and he said in a low voice, "They are from Thunder Sound Sect." Thunder Sound Sect. Sui Mo was slightly surprised. Had they exposed themselves somewhere? Otherwise, Thunder Sound Sect would not have found them no matter how strong they were. Sui Mo was very confident in his disguises. Definitely. Darren, notice the thunder scripts at their wrists. That is a trait unique to Thunder Sound sects. Only those that cultivate the Thunder Sound Shin methodology will have this kind of thunder script. The steward introduced in a low voice and then asked, "Darren, what do you want to do?" Sui Mo thought and then said, "Pretend not to have found them, we will continue to do what we do." "Yes." The steward responded. Then a hint of worry rose in his eyes. He had traveled this path countless times and it was the first time he encountered a situation like this. The observers changed shifts several times. Sui Mo and the others pretended to be ignorant and traveled as usual. Only 5 days later, when Sui Mo and the others were about to leave the territories of Thunder Sound Temple were they stopped. They were not the only ones. Many ships had been stopped at the border. Disciples of Thunder Sound Temple are here on orders to do an inspection. Many thanks for your cooperation. The voice of a Thunder Sound disciple spread. Dozens of Thunder Sound disciples danced in the air. They wore Shin equipment and seemed as though they were facing a great enemy. Some of the disciples had staffs that flashed with light and could attack at any moment. "Big brother, what has happened here? This has never occurred before." The steward was smart and immediately went over to inquire. "Who knows? It started a few days ago. I heard that thing was lost. That person's really daring to steal from Thunder Sound Temple." The one that spoke was a middle-aged person who had a weathered face. "Yeah, but we are the ones that lose out, this delays us," another person said. The middle-aged person shook his head and said, "Just cooperate and it will be fine." The disciples of Thunder Sound sect are slightly domineering but they are disciplined. They won't take anything or delay us unnecessarily. If this is on Heart Leaf Dhyana sect's territory, don't think about getting out unless you bleed a bit. "Oh, the disciples of Thunder Sound Temple are this disciplined?" Sui Mo inserted. The bigger sects like Thunder Sound Sect, Lotus Sutra Temple, they are all disciplined. Those little sects are not, the middle-aged person explained. At this time, the Thunder Sound Temple disciple that stared at Sui Mo flew towards another disciple in the air and whispered. That disciple immediately turned to look at Sui Mo's group. He beckoned to a few others that landed around Sui Mo and surrounded his group. The surrounding people immediately ran away in fear. Sui Mo hadn't thought that the other was truly coming for him. Their luck was really bad to encounter such a thing. "This one is Thunder Sound Temple disciple Yao Yu, greetings." The leading Thunder Sound Temple disciple bowed with a solemn expression. "Our sect is conducting a routine inspection. Please cooperate and forgive us for our disturbance. The surroundings immediately became quiet. The eyes of everyone in the group turned towards Zuemo. Chapter 765, Lil Black's Achievement, Let Them Inspect. Zuemo said baldly. For one, he was curious about the goal of these Thunder Sound Temple disciples. They had been targeted from the start, and it did not appear to be a coincidence. Secondly, Zuemo also wanted to see if their disguise could pass the test. If they could not even work on some Thunder Sound Temple disciples, it would be embarrassing if they went to Heartleaf Diana sect and were discovered. Little Emogo wanted face. Since he decided to go the devious way, they naturally could not show any slip-ups. Tian Huan had heavily infiltrated Heartleaf Diana sect, and there definitely were experts that Tian Huan had sent hiding among them. Zuemo had made a decision to declaw Heartleaf Diana sect. These Tian Huan Xiozha in hiding were on Zuemo's blacklist. It had to be said that the disguises of Zuemo's group were very good. They were dressed plainly without any decoration. Other than Zuemo, who was dressed slightly better due to acting as the boss of the merchant group, the other people were attired normally. Their shin equipment and other things were stored in their rings, and their rings were also disguised to appear like normal rings. The Ling steeds that they rode were also appropriate to their identity, all of them Ling-horned horses. They were cheap, had high endurance, and were easy to feed. Any inn could supply the appropriate Ling grasses to feed them. For merchant groups who cared about overhead costs, they liked the Ling-horned horses. Several Thunder Sound Temple disciples immediately encircled them, and there were some other disciples that were warily staring at them. Zuemo and the others were experienced fighters and unaffected by these Thunder Sound Temple disciples. The Thunder Sound Temple disciple who had gone in to inspect quickly came out and shook his head. The disciple leader hadn't expected that they wouldn't find anything at all. He hesitated and then said as though nothing has happened, "Great apologies for the disturbance, you may go." Just as the steward was about to say thanks and leave, Zuemo suddenly spoke. "Are you looking for something?" The leading disciple stilled. He clearly had not been prepared for Zuemo's question. He probably had not thought that someone would ask in a situation like this. However, the other's expression was normal and there was nothing fishy. He hesitated before nodding and saying, "Yes. A treasure of our sect was stolen, and we are looking for it." Thinking about how the mission was incomplete, his mood immediately became terrible. He waved his hand impatiently. "You may go." The other merchant groups immediately started as though they had been pardoned. Seeing the merchant groups hurriedly leaving, the leading disciple had a thoughtful expression. He quickly realized what had been wrong. The other had been too calm and didn't show any reverence because of his identity. "That group is suspicious." A tall disciple came over and said in a low voice. Lao Jiao said that he felt unusual vibrations coming from them. Unusual vibrations? The leading disciple frowned. Yes, it was short, but Lao Jiao said that it definitely isn't an illusion. Unusual vibrations does not mean they are hiding the thing. The leading disciple shook his head. But it is very likely. You know that Lao Jiao's sense is unusual. Then what do you think we should do? The leading disciple was persuaded. Looking at their direction, it seems that they are heading towards Lotus Sutra Temple. Let's first close the transportation formation towards Lotus Sutra Temple, the tall disciple said coldly, then they will only have one path. The leading disciple's expression changed slightly. Black Sea Flying Route. Zuemo was extremely bored. Everyone around him was a cultivation maniac. Other than the stewards that could chat with him, the other people either cultivated or cultivated. Wei Sheng's eyes were closed and he was in meditation, Zhong Ru was in meditation, Luoli was in meditation, even the ones he picked out were in meditation. Agui's eyes were not closed, but Zuemo knew that she did not need to meditate. She could cultivate like this. The boring long journey was just like normal. The only one that did not cultivate was Tseng Lianer, but this horrid person made tea and idly enjoyed the scenery. She didn't show any intentions of sharing a cup with Zuemo. Who really was the boss? Zuemo was furious, but he had to admit that some people's presences could not be copied. Zhuo tried sing Lianer's idle and serene style, but it was not right when he did it. The strength of the stewards could not compare to Zhuo. They were tired by the long travel and didn't have much energy to speak. The Zhuo, bored, could only let the little ones out and started to play with them. Silly Bird naturally ignored him. She was usually proud, and now that her strength had grown immensely, she became even prouder. That imperious gaze was still so domineering. 10th grade was a cultivation fanatic. Sunshine was slightly bashful, Lil Pagoda, Lil Fire, and Lil Black were the best at flattering him. They flew in circles around Zhuo and fawned over him. Zhuo was very comforted. Zhuo's hand felt a point of pain. He bent down and saw that it was Lil Black on his hand using its short legs to pull Zhuo, its antennae furiously waving. Seeing Lil Black like this, Zhuo's eyes suddenly lit up, the bored expression on his face sweeping away. Lil Black had been a good treasure hunter in the past, and after spending some time on Ching Shidi's hands, it should have improved. Thinking about the valuable materials and Jingshi that Ching Shidi had exploited out of him, Zhuo felt his heart ache. Lil Black, good Lil Black, you have to make me proud. If you can find some great treasure trove for your old man will give you some meat to eat. What? You don't want meat? That's all right, your old man will eat meat, you can drink soup. Did the heavens see the G was in poverty now, and wanted to make it up to G? Zhuo put down Lil Black from his hand with anticipation. Lil Black climbed off Zhuo's hand and flew towards the rear of the convoy. Zhuo's mind became alert and he followed closely. Lil Black landed on the last transport boat. Zhuo stilled and then had a suspicious expression. This transportation boat carried wares that were used as part of their identities. They were items from Mo Cloud Sea that were very welcome. If they were sold to Heartleaf Diana sect and the surroundings, they could make a significant profit. The journey was relatively hard, but there were many people that this alone would arouse suspicion. This ship had come with them from Mo Cloud Sea, there shouldn't be a problem. Zhuo's pupils suddenly contracted. Had someone sneaked onto the ship? The guards on the ship saw Zhuo arrive and were startled awake. When they saw Zhuo's hand move to signal to be on their guard, their expressions changed. The other must be powerful to have managed to sneak onto the ship under such a heavy guard. Noticing Zhuo's unusual actions, all of the merchant group were alerted. They were all experienced and worked well together. They didn't make a sound at all. They soundlessly flowed and spread into a net that had no weakness. Lil Black stopped outside the storage deck, its antennae waving furiously. But in the next moment, its body suddenly streaked back rapidly and hid behind Silly Bird's back. When he got to here, Zhuo finally discovered an almost imperceptible presence. He was shocked, his body trembling. This presence was extremely weak. Even though he was so close, if it wasn't for Lil Black's warning, he may have missed it. Someone had really sneaked onto the ship. Zhuo felt a chill, but he was also angry. They had just entered the 9 great Diana sects, and such a great oversight had been made. Zhuo felt he was embarrassed, especially when there were so many experts around. The friend inside, do not hide. Come out. Zhuo's tone was icy, the Shin technique on his hand ready to be cast. The entire net gave off a suffocating presence. There wasn't any movement inside. That almost intangible presence became even weaker, as though it almost disappeared. Zhuo was shocked. The other seemed to disappear into thin air. But he knew that the other had not truly disappeared but had just hid away all of their presence to become one with the surroundings. This caused the illusion that the other had disappeared. An expert. Zhuo quickly made his decision, his tone even icier. If Sir does not come out by the count of 3, then be crushed with this ship. 3. Just as Zhuo shouted this, a gray shadow suddenly charged in front of him. Zhuo was astounded, but he reacted quickly. The Shin technique that he had prepared accurately hit the gray shadow. Zhuo did not keep anything back with this attack, and the gray shadow crumpled. At the same time, he heard Wei Xing Shixiang shout, "Go back!" A dazzling red sword light broke through the air. A faint, almost intangible presence, twisted strangely in the air, and suddenly appeared in another corner. Return. Sung Lian Air's expression turned dark. Her afternoon tea had been interrupted and she was not in a good mood. Dozens of moon crescents appeared around her, the sharp edges crisscrossing as though she wanted to dismember the shadow. The almost intangible shadow took a turn again. He charged directly towards Ague. Everyone else had expressions as they did not bear to look. Agui's figure flashed as though she disappeared in the air. The shadow felt the surrounding net open and was overjoyed. They gathered all the strength in their body in an attempt to charge through the opening. Yet before he could act, he felt a grip around his neck. He lost control of his body, and the world around him spun. Bam! Holding his neck, Ague swung her arm as though she was swinging a great hammer to hit the ship. The strong force caused the boards on the ship that were as hard as rock and covered in seal scripts to crack. The fragments shot into the surroundings. The shadow felt a great pain and then fell unconscious. Before he lost consciousness, he saw blurry faces. The expressions on the faces of these people were really strange. It seems to be sympathy, or pity, or seemed to say, just as expected. Chapter 766, Bird. Mission, Snapped Red Silk, had been uprooted. This stunning news spread in the Yao underground world like a plague. The underground world was not as large as people imagined. While the influence of the underground had silently grown in recent years, every leader with a clear head knew that this golden age of prosperity was a temporary byproduct of the inner conflict in the Council of Elders. But the collapse of Snapped Red Silk still caused an earthquake in the underground world. In truth, Snapped Red Silk did not have large territories, but their skilled management made the faction a firmly established one. Their feelers reached into every corner of their territory. Unless it was a matter of life and death, there were not many factions that would touch them. They were strong for their size, and one would have to pay a significant price to defeat them. Also, Snapped Red Silk S-base was like an impenetrable barrel of metal. Even if one won, it was a complex and troublesome matter to digest a territory. Snapped Red Silk was strong because they were wealthy. The reason that they were wealthy was because they had a monopoly over the local low-level materials business. The profit in low material business was not high. But because the majority of powerful factions were not willing to waste manpower on controlling this business, it was left to the underground factions. Snapped Red Silk was like all other underground powers. They usually were greatly connected to the lowest rungs of society. They had abundant manpower and no competition from large factions. Snapped Red Silk had quickly taken over almost 7/10 of the low-level materials business in their territory. Any business, if it was a monopoly, would gain great profits even if the profit margin was slim. Low-level materials were not eye-catching, but they were traded in great volume. The Snapped Red Silk that had a monopoly over the market started to manipulate the market to obtain even more profit. They were skilled, and the prices they gave the large factions were far lower than market price. With this method, they hadn't affected the benefits of the major factions, and even built a terrifying web of connections. Yet a faction like this had been exterminated. The faction that had destroyed it was called Blackfire. Blackfire was a relatively unknown name in the underground world, but this unknown little faction had defeated Snapped Red Silk that everyone had been unable to deal with. It really was fantastical. The tentacles of the underground factions were like an invisible spiderweb. Any gust of wind or movement would be felt. Soon, all kinds of intelligence about Blackfire ended up on the desks of leaders everywhere. Yu Qinlai's recent days were extremely comfortable, and there was a joyful expression on his dark face that could not be disguised. He had a few more powerful fighters under his command. The struggles of Snapped Red Silk were like that of a wild beast at the end of its life. After their last struggle had been blocked, they completely fell apart. Compared to the difficulty of the battles before, the battles after the added personnel were so easy it was like sightseeing. However, eliminating the remaining of Snapped Red Silk's power was slightly troublesome. While Yu Qinlai was young, he was skilled and cunning. The secret pieces that he had set up before were now coming into use. Many thanks, everyone. Yu Qinlai expressionlessly stated his thanks. Next to him, Tao Wei and the others looked with complicated expressions as Nan Yu and the others. The underground world did not lack for experts like Wu Ying who were strong. But the people in front of them were so strong they felt fear and awe. Experts of this level could only be supported by those large factions. Boss support was really unfathomable. Tao Wei and the others could see that while Nan Yu's group was strong, they were definitely not people that worked in the shadows. They did not have any presence of darkness, and their personalities were honest and straightforward like their way of fighting. No problem. Wariness flashed across Nan Yu's eyes. She had an instinctive wariness of these people of the shadows. If she did not see it with her own eyes, she would not believe that Darren would have this kind of faction that worked in the shadows. She asked directly, "What do we need to do next? If possible, we hope to finish as soon as possible." The gazes of everyone behind her gathered on Yuqin Lai. They were extremely wary of this young but extremely vicious and cunning youth. They had watched as Yuqin Lai expressionlessly executed more than 30 people. This guy was a demon. They only hoped now to finish their mission as soon as possible and then leave this place. They liked sunlight and not darkness. Yuqin Lai jerked the corners of his lips. It could have been in mirth or disdain. But he turned and nodded at Tao Wei. Tao Wei understood and took out a jade scroll to hand to Nan Yu. Nan Yu took the jade scroll with some puzzlement and then started to read, "This person is one of Darren's targets." Yuqin Lai's voice carried a darkness that would make people feel cold. Nan Yu finished reading and handed the jade scroll to others. She raised her head. "I cannot see what is special about this person." Tao Wei smiled slightly. Her lips moved and an enchanting voice spread. Song Ling Shui, female, 26, a member of the Gray family. Gray family? Song Zhe couldn't help but say. He was curious at encountering someone with the same surname as him. Tao Wei did not know why Song Zhe was shocked. She continued to give a detailed explanation, the Tsang family of New Flat Jia. It is a local faction. Her parents passed away when she was 11 and she became the family head, the youngest family head in the history of the Gray family. Nan Yu immediately had a feeling of empathy. This was a situation similar to the one she experienced in the past. She knew just how difficult it was for a child of 11 to become the family head. New Flat Jia's other factions all assumed that the Gray family's decline was certain, and this included factions that were enemies of the Gray family. Therefore, 3 local factions allied together and attacked the Gray family. Yet no one expected was that the Gray family defeated the 3 families under the leadership of Tsang Ling Shui. This battle made the Gray family and Tsang Ling Shui famous in the New Flat Jia. Everyone listened, enchanted. Many people had astonished expressions. This would have been so difficult for an 11-year-old girl. After that, the Gray family quickly grew in power under the leadership of Tsang Ling Shui. 3 years later, the Gray family became one of the 5 biggest factions in New Flat Jia. Under her initiative, the 5 strongest families of New Flat formed the New Flat Merchant Association. The chair was Tsang Ling Shui. That year, she was 15. Everyone gaped as they heard this. The New Flat Merchant Association developed quickly and in the following years, their business expanded to more than 30 of the surrounding jia. Oh, I forgot to tell everyone, Tsang Ling Shui is 17 this year. So there are really geniuses in the world. Nan Yu couldn't help but sigh in astonishment. The orange-haired Yao crowded over and said shamelessly, "Is Sister Nan talking about me?" Awen coldly said, "Idiot." Nan Yu's eyebrow twitched. These two were starting again. She brought out her killing move. "Shut up. Don't forget what boss said before you left." The orange-haired Yao shrunk his head back and said, "Good brothers are loyal, I am peerlessly loyal." Awen was silent. A look flashed through Tao Wei's eyes. She looked at boss. Boss' eyes were closed. "Please continue," Nan Yu said. Tsang Ling Shui is skilled in management. Under her reigns, the Tsang family is not just organized, it has quickly grown. Her talent and skill also aroused the attention of many factions. The New Flat Merchant Association has some power, but compared to the larger factions, it isn't worth a mention. I heard that even the Council of Elders is interested in her. Tao Wei's eyes moved. Do you know what is the best way to recruit a young female? Nan Yu said coolly, force a marriage. Tao Wei laughed lightly. Miss Nan Yu is really smart. There are many ways of dealing with Tsang Ling Shui. Tsang Ling Shui does not have much to bargain with. The most effective method is a marriage proposal. Tsang Ling Shui is beautiful, she is rich and skilled in management. It will be greatly profitable if one could marry this kind of woman. Up until now, Tsang Ling Shui has received over 10 marriage proposals. None of these factions are ones that she or the new Flat Merchant Association can afford to offend. These people should be killed. A one who hated being forced to do anything said in fury. The orange-haired Yao said righteously, only a genius can save a beautiful maiden. Nan Yu ignored the two of them. What does she have to do with us? Yu Qinlai, who had been resting with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. This is one of the targets from the higher-ups. Do not ask me the reason. You only need to know that she is your target and I will help you complete the mission. What do we have to do? Ming Juzi asked. Of the group, he had the most ideas. I lean towards kidnapping her. Yu Qinlai shrugged and seemed cunning like a fox. However, this is your mission. You will decide how to carry out your mission. The higher-ups want to recruit a talent that is skilled at internal management. Of course, if you accidentally damage her, we have other targets. Such a cold and emotionless person. Nan Yu's dislike increased. However, Ming Juzi answered before she did. You mean that after completing this, we have other targets to reach? Yes. Yu Qinlai said coolly. The preliminary list to investigate was 103 people. After investigation and selection based on the higher UPS criteria, there are 16 in left. 16 people. Nan Yu and the others gaped. This number surprised their imagination. These 16 are all talented, each of them is not from strong faction and are easy to get to. Yu Qinlai looked at the group and jerked the corners of his mouth. You should thank me, I helped you finish a large part of the work. There are 8 that are already taken care of through terror, kidnapping and bribery, and another one we just got from Snapped Red Silk. You mean we have 7 left? Ming Juzi immediately caught the point. Yes, Yu Qinlai said expressionlessly, I suggest you first go after Tsang Ling Shui. In the ranking from the higher-ups, she has the highest score. While the final result will only be known after they fight it out, I favor her. Also, the level of this mission is Bird. I believe that you know what this means. Nan Yu and the others were shocked. Chapter 767, Bronze Hoop Remnant, Bird, was the highest level of mission for MO Cloud C. Zhua MO had set up MO Cloud C's mission structure using the Lil One's rankings. From highest to lowest, it was Bird, Pagoda, Butterfly, Fire, and Worm. Bird level missions were the highest priority and most important missions of MO Cloud C. It meant that this mission was a crucial mission that would determine life and death for MO Cloud C. Bird-level missions were not easily announced, but once they were, every person of MO Cloud C had a duty and responsibility to serve for the bird-level mission. For any bird-level mission, if it was necessary, all the power of MO Cloud C could be mobilized to complete it, and they were obligated to do so. There were not many that knew of this compulsory rule. Normal citizens would almost never encounter missions above fire level. But Nan Yu and the others had followed Swamo for many years and knew about the inner workings. So when Yu Qinlai stated the mission ranking, they could not keep their composure. What do we need to do? Nan Yu asked gravely. Her expression was stern and focused. Everyone else, even the orange-haired Yao, put away their cheer and became focused. The temperature of the conference room suddenly dipped, the atmosphere becoming heavy and solemn. Tao Wei and the others felt slightly uneasy. They felt surprised at this suddenly transformation, but more of what they felt was shock. They were experienced, and they could see the great importance that Nan Yu and the others placed on this mission. It came from their hearts. The level of the mission changed their attitude. A scene like this would only appear if the other had strict organization and they strongly identified with the organization. This was a strict, regulated, and united organization. They could not see the organization behind Boss, but this was the tip of the iceberg and made them feel great awe and terror. Yuqin Lai seemed to not feel the suddenly murderous atmosphere. He was still expressionless. This is a problem you will need to consider. From my position, using tactics like kidnapping and such is the most convenient. But considering that they will become your co-workers in the future, I suggest using gentler tactics. For example, Nan Yu found that she could not treat this Lord of the Darkness using a normal view. The other was not as strong as them, but in terms of viciousness and cunning, all of them added up were not a match for him. No matter how strong a 17-year-old female is, she is still 17. Yuqin Lai glanced at Nan Yu. There is a common saying, you give her what she needs. Mingju Zi had a thoughtful expression. Nan Yu was even more direct. What does she need? While she had never seen Yuqin Lai, and the aura of darkness on the other made her uncomfortable. But since the higher-ups had given the bird-level mission to him, it showed that this youth of the underground was trustworthy. Yuqin Lai had clearly been investigating and working on this for a long time, and he definitely knew more than they did as well as being more experienced. In this kind of situation, it was more reliable to listen to the suggestions of a professional. A look flashed across Yuqin Lai's expressionless face, but then it disappeared. He turned to Chai Shanqing. Speak. Chai Shanqing was not surprised. He elegantly nodded at each person. His voice was clear as though it contained a power that would make people unconsciously trust him. First, we will analyze Song Lingshue's personality. She was able to save the Gray family from a dangerous situation and created the new Flat Business Association. Other than her outstanding abilities, she has unique personality traits. She is determined to the point of stubbornness, decisive, and filled with confidence and a strong sense of responsibility. Everyone felt this was reasonable and nodded. Chai Shanqing smiled elegantly. At this time, he was like a wise and educated teacher without any aura of darkness. She is extremely confident. This kind of confidence has helped her overcome many obstacles. Due to this, even though she seems surrounded on all sides, her stubbornness and confidence keep her believing that she can find a way out. This will make her try all kinds of methods to resolve the danger present. Even though all the factions are pressuring her, she will not surrender immediately. She will struggle for a time. But let us first analyze her situation. We will find that the probability that she can break free of the situation is low. The enemies can obtain both the person and wealth, who would let her go. Those greedy people would not do so. According to our investigation, the ones behind those acting now are mighty. So mighty that even Ming Yuyi is wary. Ming Yuyi is Song Lingshue's best person to side with, but Ming Yuyi is busy consolidating her power and obtaining the support of other elders. She would only interfere with the plans of other elders in one situation, when the benefits surpasses her losses. But it is clear that the current 17-year-old Song Lingshue and the new Flat Merchant Association do not possess such high value. Nan Yu and the others unconsciously stopped breathing. They listened, entranced. In a few words, the complex situation became clear. Consequently, in my predictions, the possibility that Song Lingshue can break free is very low. What determines this is her other trait, her strong sense of responsibility. It is not good to act against Song Lingshue openly, but there are many ways to deal with the Gray family and the new Flat Merchant Association. For the future of the Gray family, I think the probability that Song Lingshue will make a compromise is high. Of course, I have to admit that Song Lingshue may be able to get out due to her great talents. Therefore, we need to work in the shadows to stop any chance that she can get out. Why? Nan Yu frowned. She innately did not like these machinations in the shadows. Chai Shanqing smiled as though he was not discussing a conspiracy but a theoretical problem. No matter how hardy, how determined she is, do not forget her age. A hopeless situation, the feeling of defeat and hopelessness created by failure of her struggles, that is enough to take her to her most fragile state. She will struggle in a darkness where she cannot see any hope. At this time, we only need to give her one thread of hope and we can recruit her. This is our only chance. Nan Yu and the others shuddered, their bodies cold. Song Zhe couldn't help saying, "Why don't we find her now? If we offer her enough, we may be able to persuade her." Chai Shanqing laughed lightly, "We will never be able to offer as much as the others. Once we appear, Song Lin Shui will not give up on the chance to use us to strengthen her bargaining position. She will then sell us off to the highest bidder and together they will become enemy. Then they will use all kinds of schemes to push us out of the game. We can only hide in the darkness, but they can work in the light. This means that what we can give cannot be more than what they can. Do not ever underestimate the cunning and greed of these families. They are bloodsuckers. What they are most skilled in is using their background and power to push others out of business." He then smiled coldly and said, "Song Ling Shui is still waiting for a better offer, yet she does not understand these people well enough. They will not give her a chance. They are like a pack of wolves, cunning and cooperative. They can compromise among themselves, but they cannot accept prey bargaining with them. This is an advantage that their power gives them. They have used this advantage for thousands of years. They are familiar with everything that can be used, and are used to using it to get the most benefits." Everyone was silent. Yu Qinlai's cool voice interrupted their thoughts. "He is an expert in this field. If you are willing to listen to his opinion, he will become your helper." A long time later, Nanyu spoke, "Many thanks, Mr. Chai." Chai Shanqing elegantly bowed, "It is my honor to work for you." Zhuo Mo examined this guy who had been stripped until he only had one piece of cloth left and was locked up by numerous jinji. The people around him looked predatorily at this tender-looking person with unfriendliness. Someone had managed to get onto the ship without being detected, and this happened in front of Darren. All of them felt ashamed and were not in good moods. The captive was short and the disguise on his face had been cleaned off to show an ordinary face. But there were many faint scripts carved on his body that seemed like the Mo matrices that Mo clouds see carved. It was the first time Zhuo Mo had seen similar things in other places. After inspecting them, Zhuo Mo found that what was inscribed on the person were not Mo matrices but a kind of unique seal script. This kind of seal script already had some of the traits of Shen glyphs. It was these seal scripts that were close Shen glyphs which allowed his presence to be hidden to such an astounding degree that none of the numerous experts present detected him. The effects of these seal scripts broadened Zhuo Mo's view. After making a copy of all the seal scripts on this guy's body, Zhuo Mo's attention moved onto another item. A half section of a bronze hoop. Zhuo Mo knew with a glance that this bronze hoop was the remnant of an ancient Shen device. The simple and almost crude patterns on the bronze hoop were the signature of that era. Also, there was a very faint yet unique Shen power vibration from the bronze hoop. This was probably what Thunder Sound Temple had been searching for. Zhuo Mo played with it before handing it off to the others. This thing probably wasn't simple as it appeared, being the remnant of a Shen device and to cause Thunder Sound Temple to make such a great fuss over it. He motioned to the guard next to him. The guard kicked the unconscious captive. The captive slowly woke up. When he opened his eyes, he looked dazedly at the unfamiliar faces. When his gaze encountered a Gui, he shook and immediately woke up. Some terrifying memories flashed through his mind, and his body unconsciously shook. At this time, he heard someone speak. "Speak, who are you?" Chapter 768. A fatal temptation. The captive's mind was stunned, but he quickly realized his situation. The people around him had unfriendly expressions and the murderous presences they gave off caused his heart to instinctively tremble. Relating them to the terrifying experts he had fought against before his unconsciousness, he knew that he had been caught this time. "I am Lao De Guang." Zhuo Mo and the others exchanged a look. No one heard of this name before. Don't use this kind of name to fool people. How can someone with your skills be unknown? Zhuo Mo looked sardonically at Lao De Guang. Lao De Guang knew that there was no chance today, and briskly confessed, "Other people call me the Shadowless Ghost Hand." Shadowless Ghost Hand. The eyes of the steward next to Zhuo Mo widened, his expression changing as he shouted. He saw Zhuo Mo turn around and hurriedly explained, "The Shadowless Ghost Hand is a famous thief around the 9 Great Diana Sect territories. They say that he has never failed. The 9 Great Diana Sex has a great bounty, but no one was able to catch him. We captured a big fish this time. Lao Guang listened to the narration of the steward and a proud expression rose. Zhuo saw the expression on his face and smiled. Oh, I didn't see it, you are a famous character. Lao Guang's expression stilled. Thinking about his captive situation, the pride on his face immediately disappeared. What is this? Zhuo picked up the bronze hoop remnant that had been returned to him and waved it. Do not try to fool us. The Thunder Sound Temple seems to be searching for this. If we give this thing and you to them, other than the bounty, we might get even more benefits from Thunder Sound Temple. Lao Guang's expression tensed. He thought about how his fate would be worse than death if he was handed to Thunder Sound Temple. The other's unfriendly gaze was vicious and experienced. He quickly stopped his other plans and obediently answered, yes, Thunder Sound Temple is searching for this. This is a token for an ancient ruin. A token for an ancient ruin? Zhuo narrowed his eyes. Everyone familiar with him knew that this expression was when he was interested. Since he had confessed, Lao Guang decided to do it to the end. Thus, an ancient ruin was found in the 9 Great Diana Sex, but the ruin is shrouded in a strange power field. It is impossible to enter without the token. There are 13 tokens in total, all of them remnants of Shin devices. Not long after the ruins were discovered, divination masters identified the time that the ruin will open. It is in 1 month. 13 tokens? How come there are so many tokens? Zhuo smiled ambiguously at Lao Guang. For some unknown reason, Zhuo's smile caused Lao Guang's bones to shiver. He forced himself to remain calm. I do not know. These Shun device remnants were found around the ruin, 13 total. The 9 Great Diana Sects each have 1, and the remaining 4 are in the hands of unknown people. A token for an ancient ruin is enough to make the Thunder Sound Temple so desperate? I don't believe it. Zhuo shook his head. Lao Guang immediately panicked. Some of the information on the ancient ruin has been uncovered. It has other things, but there is a treasure that no one is able to refuse. That is why the Thunder Sound Temple is so desperate. What treasure? Zhuo smiled enchantingly. Treasure? Oh, this word make one so excited. Lao Guang had a solemn expression. A completely preserved ancient Shin device nucleus. Zhuo's eyes suddenly lit up, the smile on his face completely disappearing. He asked in a deep voice, what did you say? Lao Guang's face turned ashen pale. He finally knew why this person made him feel an indescribable danger. This person's power was greater than he had imagined. He was like a deep and unfathomable lake. The strong pressure and feeling of suffocation rushed at him like a ferocious lion that touched his face. He could even see the threads of blood lingering on the fangs and claws. It is a completely preserved ancient Shin device nucleus. Lao Guang's voice trembled. While I don't know how it was preserved, this is certain. He instinctively swallowed and forced out. Each token can only take 5 people inside. Other than the 9 Great Diana Sects who each have a token, 4 of the tokens have disappeared. They most likely are in the hands of the 9 Great Diana Sect. 1 more token means they can take in 5 more people. The hopes of getting the treasure is greater. Why can only 5 people be taken in? Zhuo asked in a cold voice. I don't know. Supposedly, it is an ancient Jinji. Everyone is saying this. Lao Guang shook his head. He was afraid of angering Zhuo and hurriedly said, but this is likely reliable. Otherwise, those large sects would not be so desperately searching for extra tokens. Thunder Sound Temple took this token from someone else. It has passed through the hands of 7 owners. They are all dead. He suddenly realized what he was saying, his face turning a few shades whiter. He hurriedly elaborated, I'm not talking about you. Zhuo did not care. From the words that Lao Guang said, he knew that the other was not speaking lies. Originally, he did not intend to interfere in this matter. Others might be curious in ancient ruins, but Zhuo had experienced many already. However, a completely preserved ancient Shin device nucleus caused his little heart to jump. Shin device raiment, the top and best of the world right now. City Destroyer, and arsonist had almost bankrupted Mo Cloud C, especially when those top-ranked materials were all used up. These materials could not be bought with Jingshi. Even if Mo Cloud C was rich right now, they did not have other avenues to get so many top materials. Also, most of the top materials were used to forge Shen device nuclei. The Shen device nuclei made using the weapon layering craftsmanship could be called Shen device nuclei, but they was still an impassable chasm between those and the true Shen device nuclei. Due to this, no matter how many creative and novel ideas Mo and the Golden Crow camp had, they could not forge new Shen device raiments. Mo, the leader of Mo Cloud C, didn't even have a Shen device raiment. Little Mo Gu was displeased by this. Searching for top materials almost became a long-term mission of Mo Cloud C. The rewards were high, but the progress at present was still far from the goal. Little Mo Gu's Shen device raiment naturally was also far away. Hearing that there was a complete Shen device raiment in the ruin, Mo's mind immediately became lively. This Shen device raiment was a fatal temptation for Mo. Even more advantageous was that one token could only take along 5 people. This meant that those that were able to enter the ruin must be the high-level personnel of every faction. In terms of high-level power, little Mo Gu was full of confidence when he looked at the people around him. Mo turned to look at the other people. Everyone had excited expressions. It was clear that everyone knew the value of the Shen device nucleus. Just this Shen device nucleus would mean that they had not made a wasted trip. Where is the ruin? Mo asked. Territory controlled by the Lotus Sutra Temple, it is called Calm Brightness Jia, Lao Guang said obediently. Mo turned around. The steward understood and hurriedly said, the Lotus Sutra Temple does have a Calm Brightness Jia. If we go there, we need to hurry. If Thunder Sound Temple closes the transportation information, it will be troublesome. Close the transportation formation? Mo frowned. The steward explained, if we go to Lotus Sutra Temple now, we have to pass through a transportation formation. If that transportation formation is closed, we can get there through other paths, but it will take far longer than a month, unless. Mo directly asked, unless what? Unless we go the Black Sea flight route. When he said this, the steward had a terrified expression. Mo stilled. He noticed out of the corner of his eyes that Lao Guang also had a similar expression of terror. Is there something dangerous about that place? Mo asked curiously. The steward unconsciously showed his terror on his face as though he thought of some scary memory. He said in almost a dreamlike fashion, about a decade ago, I went through the Black Sea flight route. At that time, Thunder Sound Temple was in conflict with other sects and closed the transportation formation. Our ship had the 100-leaf heart cloud that we needed to deliver within a month. No matter what, it only blooms for a month. On the 31st day, it will wither and have no value at all. In order to buy this 100-leaf heart cloud, the group had spent almost half of our assets. Our journey had to succeed. Seeing the transportation formation closed, we could only choose the Black Sea flight route. And then? Sung Lianair asked curiously. The steward smiled tragically. At the start, the fleet had more than 200 people. There were only 19 alive at the end. Everyone was astounded. No one had expected that less than a tenth had survived. We knew that the Black Sea flight route is too dangerous, but that business was a matter of life and death for the group. Boss spent a great amount to invite a Fanshu experts to guard us. The steward's flat narration caused everyone's heart to beat rapidly. Were even Fanshu experts unable to protect you? Sung Lianair could not resist speaking again. Fanshu was akin to the martial level of the Mo. With a marshal's protection, the fatality rate was still so astounding, the dangers could be imagined. That Fanshu expert did not come out alive. The steward gritted his teeth. His face twisted. The terrifying memories came at him again. His face was ashen pale and his body trembled. Now, no one was able to maintain their calm, their expressions changing. A place that could kill Fanshu experts was also a great threat to them as well. Mo's eyes lit up. Speed up. Reach the transportation formation at top speed. No one dared to slack off and sped up. The entire group accelerated. After flying for multiple days, when they reached the transportation formation, the formation was being guarded by battalions. The formation was also dark. It was clearly closed. Thunder Sound Temple had predicted that they would go on this path and had prepared. Everyone's face became ugly. Damn it. Chapter 769 Test. Everyone's eyes gathered on Zuemo. How about we move a battalion and destroy them? Eldest Shixiang's tone suddenly became domineering. Lao Deguang shuddered. It really was intimidating to hear these words. That was Thunder Sound Temple, the first of the 9 great Diana sects. Where were these people from? Lao Deguang felt more and more anxious. Zuemo thought and then said, "It is not difficult to defeat Thunder Sound Temple, and only that Yang Yuan Hao will be slightly troublesome. But it will not be easy for us after doing that." Eldest Shixiang was just casually mentioning it. He usually did not participate in Mo Cloud C's strategy meetings. He was not interested in these matters, and was obsessed with his sword path. Also, he trusted Zuemo's abilities in this area, not to mention that Zuemo also had a freak like Lil Mississippi. The reason that he had even spoken up was out of worry for Zuemo's safety. He naturally did not think much of the Black Sea flight route. He believed that as long as he had his sword, nothing could impede him. But Zuemo was not the same as him. While he knew that Zuemo was not weaker than himself, and was even stronger in Shen power, he still did not want to see Shidi be placed in danger. Zuemo's gaze swept across the Thunder Sound battalions around the transportation formations. Just like eldest Shixiang had said, other than getting a battalion to come, there really was no good solution. It was not difficult to publicly break through the battalion, but opening a closed transportation formation was a difficult matter. There were only some things that could only be carried out in secret. They could not be seen breaking their ties in public. If they really broke ties publicly with Thunder Sound Temple, then Zuemo's strategy of the relying on the 9 great Diana sect resisting Tianhuan and Kunlun would be over. While a Shin device raiment was something rare, but Mo Cloud C already possessed 3 Shin device raiments, and having one more did not affect Mo Cloud C's development and strategy. Thunder Sound Temple was the head of the 9 great Diana sect and had great influence amongst them. It could sway the decisions of the 9 great Diana sects. In a few moments, Zuemo made a decision. The group was quickly noticed by the disciples of Thunder Sound Temple. They had received orders to close the transportation formation and search for suspicious people. This group in front of them was suspicious. Zuemo saw the others about to surround them. He did not want to strain relations with the Thunder Sound Temple and said in a low voice, "Head for the Black Sea flight route." The steward's face paled, but he did not make a sound. He gritted his teeth and flew in the direction of the Black Sea flight route. Lao Deguang's face was completely void of color as he said in a trembling voice, "We really have to go the Black Sea flight route? Please no, that is a path to death, that..." Lao Deguang's voice trailed off in a sob. Everyone ignored him. Wei Sheng smiled and said, "After your warning, I'm more interested in this Black Sea flight route." Wei Sheng had been worried about any threat to Zuemo's life, but since Zuemo had decided, he stopped all other thoughts. He only decided that all he had to do was protect Shidi. Everyone else had anticipatory expressions. For elites like them that had slaughtered their way out of mountains of corpses, not even the most dangerous path could cause their minds to waver. It aroused their fighting spirit. "Fanshu. Even Fanshu will die." Lao Deguang wailed. "Fanshu." Everyone exchanged looks and smiled. Even a person as calm and silent as Zhong Ru couldn't help but grin. "What are you crying about?" Seng Lianer gave the other a key. "You are a man, have some courage." The competition among the Mo was fierce, and Mo females mostly liked masculine and dominant men. So when Seng Lianer saw Lao Deguang act like this, she immediately felt displeased. Seeing the people around him, Mo felt some spirit rise. Some of his worry disappeared. He said with a smile, "We will explore this Black Sea flight route that is said to be peerlessly dangerous, and see just how dangerous it is." The disciples of Thunder Sound Temple gaped. This troop actually flew in the direction of the Black Sea flight route. East Spring Jia was lost. all of Quan Pei's troops were lost. These two events shook the Mo martial alliance. If people had just felt threatened before, then the two successive defeats caused them to feel as though there was a blade pointing at their hearts. Bone-aching coldness caused them to have goosebumps. Hai Jin-yun finally saw Shang Yusheng arrive. This news caused the higher-ups in the Mo martial alliance to feel uplifted. The meet-up of the two great battle generals was like an anchor. It caused them to be filled with hope about the victory of the fight. This war had come so suddenly without any warning. Even the Mo martial alliance did not know even now why Mo Cloud Sea had started this war. Theoretically, the two sides did not have any conflicts. In truth, before the war started, the two had many business ties. Why had Mo Cloud Sea started this fight? What was their goal? These riddles caused them to become the reactive party during decision-making. Bi Han was also cunning, and he did not expose their goal. They could only constantly send more battalions to the front lines. What was fortunate was that Mo Cloud Sea had not started an all-out war. Many battalions had come, but for the Mo Martial Alliance, the only advantage they were sure of was the number of battalions. Also, when they studied carefully, they quickly found that Bi Han did have weaknesses. The battalions under his command had been sent to different places. Other than the Tongzi battalion which had been sent to take eastern Spring Jie, the goals of the others were unknown. However, everyone in the Mo Martial Alliance believed that the other battalions were not as strong as Sin Battalion. Without realizing it, Bi Han was now alone. No matter how strong he was alone. If a lone army like this was surrounded, it was a death sentence. Without the ability to move, without reinforcement, the lone army was like a fish on the chopping block. The Mo Martial Alliance had many battalions. Just with sheer numbers, they could grind Bi Han to death. This suddenly discovery caused all of the higher-ups in the Mo Martial Alliance to become excited. Compared to killing a top battle general like Bi Han, losing Eastern Spring and the death of Quan Pei Battalion was nothing. Everyone believed that if Hai Jin-yun and Shang Yusheng managed to grapple with Bi Han, then what waited for Bi Han was death on the battlefield. The disappearance of Bi Han after defeating Quan Pei did not cause them to be at a loss. Almost everyone thought that after Bi Han struck opening blow, he would have to attack them one by one. The merging of forces between the two battle generals allowed the Mo Martial Alliance to gain the strategic initiative. They could force Bi Han to fight them together. Right now, they only had to advance step by step. They could not give Bi Han the chance to make an ambush, and they would not lose this initiative. Hai Jin-yun and Shang Yusheng were also full of confidence. Bi Han's disappearance in their view implied that Bi Han was not confident enough to fight them openly. He wanted to avoid their forces and search for opportunities. They would immediately attack Ma Fan Battalion when Bi Han appeared somewhere else to completely cut off Bi Han's retreat. If Bi Han's retreat was cut off, he would truly become a trapped beast. Any of his struggles would be futile. In front of an ocean of cannon fodder, the elite Sin Battalion would be like a lion tied up and would fall to a pack of wolves. Yet Bi Han was more composed and patient than they imagined. Up until now, they still hadn't found any races of Bi Han and Sin Battalion. Hai Jin-yun had a fiery temper, but he was not in a rush right now. Shang Yusheng was methodically eating the delicious food in front of him with a serious expression. Shang Yusheng had pale skin. Supposedly, he had always been laughed at by the Mo battalions that admired strength for this trait. He had been called a boy toy. He was also a slow speaker. This was because he had a stuttering ailment in childhood. He had also been laughed at due to this. But no one dared to laugh at him now. Unlike Hai Jin-yun's fiery temple, Shang Yusheng was slow and gentle in personality, methodical in everything he did, and appeared as though he would not care if the sky was falling. Due to this, Hai Jin-yun would never had a temper when he encountered Shang Yusheng. Because no matter how he raged, Shang Yusheng would only smile at him, never argue, and then occasionally say a few words. The two had a good relationship. Unlike Gong Zishi, they were not famous before Shun Power's appearance, and had not been content. Their similar backgrounds and their experiences caused them to be close friends. I don't believe that Bi Han cannot see his weakness, Hai Jin-yun said gravely. His faint gold face was slightly serious. He definitely has other plans. He should not have made a mistake like this. Even though they appeared to have the strategic initiative, they were not as excited as the higher-ups. The other was not a normal battle general. They were the ones directly feeling the pressure of Bihan, and they were more careful. Shang Yuxing had finished eating this time. He used a cloth to wipe the corner of his mouth before speaking. Of course he would not make a mistake like this. Then what are his intentions? Hai Jin-yun asked in a deep voice. I don't know. Shang Yuxing was docile like a goldfish blowing bubbles. Maybe he will head directly for the center, or he is trying to confuse us. Who knows? Hai Jin-yun immediately glared and increased his volume. Can you not take this seriously? I am taking this serious. Shang Yuxing spoke so slow that Hai Jin-yun almost went crazy. He was slow that every word was said by itself. But there is no use in just taking it serious. He is Bihan. If we try to guess his thoughts, we will lose. Hai Jin-yun's furious expression quickly dissipated. The two were close and he immediately understood Shang Yuxing's meaning. You mean that we will be unchanging to face all changes? Yes. Shang Yuxing said. He paused. A cunning light flashed through his eyes before he said slowly. However, we can test him. How? Hai Jin-yun's eyes lit up. He felt as though he didn't have any place to expend his energy since he could not find Binan. Ma Fan Battalion. Shang Yuxing slowly said. Hai Jin-yun immediately reacted, a smile on his face. Thus, how can Bihan not know the danger of his retreat being cut off? He will definitely have other intentions. Then we will go test him. There are two people who are idle. We can let them try. Chapter 770, Green Silk. They've come. Nian Lu said with a depressed expression, 2 MO marshals, a great army. I suddenly feel the pressure is great. Laying on his back, head cushioned on his arms, Ma Fan chewed on a stalk of grass as he stared in a daze at the sky. He seemed to not hear what Nian Lu had said. Lei Peng rumbled out, Do you know why you feel like this? Nian Lu stilled and asked curiously, Why? Lei Peng used his large fists to beat his steel-like chest and said proudly, Because you are too small. Only a man of steel like myself can remain composed even if Mount Tai collapses. So we can use the words big-chested and brainless to describe you. Nian Lu retaliated. Lei Peng said proudly, The greatest tragedy is to look like a female but be flat-chested. Nian Lu was furious. You look like a female. I am handsome. You have no taste and accuse others. I think that you don't want to leave. Lei Peng curled his pinky and said with a snicker, Come. Let's fight. If you don't, you're a girl. The furious Nian Lu howled, You're a girl. The two started to fight without another word. Ma Fan chewed his grass and ignored the two fighting furiously around him. He looked idly at the sky with an expression of pleasure. Moments later, he stood up and spat out the grass in his mouth. He dusted off his clothes and said lazily, Let's go. Stop playing around, we need to work. 2 MO marshals have come a long way, we need to give them some face, we cannot let them leave disappointed. The surrounding battalion members puffed out their chests. Each of them had excited expressions. There were many people among them that had followed Ma Fan to fight Sukong Temple, but Ma Fan Battalion was much stronger than they were in the past. Looking at his members, Ma Fan smiled freely. He was full of confidence. Bring. Sharp alarms constantly started to sound. This meant that the enemy were within 300 li of them. In the sky, scouts were flying at high speed, some of them landing and others taking off. The defense line made from SEAL formations started to light up and the battalion members started to move at high speed. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. The battle was about to start at any moment. The roiling Black Sea was endless. The inky Black Sea water gave off an unique odor that was noxious. Even weirder was that the odor was extremely permeable. Even though they stayed inside the transportation ships, that faint odor could not be avoided. The Black Sea moved relentlessly as though there were monsters moving beneath. The strong wind on the surface was as sharp as blades. Those that were slightly weaker could not leave the ship's cabin. Zhou Mo and the others stood at the front of the boat. ignoring the howling wind. Such a strong wind. Sung Lianer sighed in surprise. Her long hair danced in the wind like black snakes. Her floor-length red dress did not move at all and made her seem weirdly beautiful. It really is rare. Wei Xing nodded. When the wind came near him, it would silently disappear. Zuoremo rubbed his chin and looked around. He murmured to himself, if we can find astral fiends in here, they would be high grade. He motioned towards the sea, and a dragon of water rose out. It flew in front of Zuoremo and turned into a black ball of water. After inspecting the black ball of water, Zuoremo said thoughtfully, this black water is very strange and is full of yin energy. There is nothing in the water, but why is it black? He handed the water ball to Lil Pagoda. Lil Pagoda's head shook like a rattledrum. It clearly disliked the black water. Zuoremo was even more puzzled. Lil Pagoda had digest yin-yang and the 5 elements, meaning it could digest almost everything. Theoretically, no matter what kind of water it was, and because water was within the 5 element, it should be within the boundaries of what Lil Pagoda could absorb. But Lil Pagoda expressed a rare repulsion. This guy was not a picky eater. Something that even a glutton who ate everything did not like. This was interesting. Suddenly, Zhong Ru opened his eyes, his dried-out finger pointing in a direction. What is that? Everyone looked along Zhong Ru's finger and all showed surprise. Not far away in the sky, a thin green strand floating in the air. This green strand was extremely thin and difficult to detect if one did not look closely. The strong wind did not damage it at all. The green strand moved along the wind. No one could name it. Even a fanatic about treasure like Zuoremo could not recognize what that green strand really was. Suddenly, Zuoremo felt a slight pain on his hand. He looked down and saw Lil Black on his hand furiously waving its antennae. Zuoremo stilled and then had an expression of ecstasy. Treasure. It definitely was some treasure. Fly in that direction. Zuoremo promptly shouted at the top of his lungs. Hearing his command, the transportation ship immediately turned and flew in the direction of the green strand. Wei Xing and the others knew little Emoga well. Something that could make little Emoga this excited was definitely outstanding. Anticipation flashed across their faces. It did not seem far, yet the ship flew for a full 2 hours. When they flew closer, everyone found that the green strand was even longer than they had imagined, about 7 or 8 li long. It waved in the air like a stalk of seagrass. Just as they were about to go near, the green strand seemed to feel danger. Its slowly swaying body suddenly shook. Everyone felt a green light crescent suddenly released by the green strand and flash towards the ship. Wei Xing's eyes lit up from where he was at the front of the ship. The god-killing blood sword appeared in his hand. Great attack. The god-killing blood sword shook and a red sword energy charged towards the green light crescent at an even faster speed. The green and red energies accurately collided. Boom! It was like the roar of thunder, and a great gust of air spread. The ship shook and was pushed multiple zhang back. Wei Xing showed slight surprise. He knew just how powerful his sword strike was. That green energy rivaled it. The green string trembled fiercely. Green energies rained down. Wei Xing's eyes suddenly became the color of blood. Marks of blood formed on the surface of the god-killing blood sword. He raised his face to look at the storm of green energies and howled. A dot of red light expanded, and the sword energy came out of nowhere. The red light was like the leader of a flock of birds. Threads of blood-red sword essence came behind it like a cloud of red birds. In a blink, the pitch of the howl suddenly increased, the flocks of birds turning into an angry tide. The hissing turned into a scalp-numbing roar. The red and the green tides collided. In the sky, countless blinding dots of light lit up like stars shining. It was a beautiful and spectacular scene that made people unconsciously hold their breath. It was even more beautiful in this deathly serenity. A breath later, the enormous wave of sound and air finally swallowed the group. The deck under Wei Xing's feet turned into powder, but he did not move at all. He seemed to be fixed in the air. On his upraised face, That pair of glowing blood-red eyes were so sharp they seemed to stab through the sky. Zone Russ' palms were pressed together. A soft Diana chant sounded in everyone's minds. The fleet that had been swaying in the angry black waves seemed to be paralyzed and then became motionless. What was weirdest was that the roiling black water seemed to have been softly flattened by an invisible hand. The surface of the sea that had been full of furious waves was now as flat as a mirror. Eldest Shixiang's strike caused Zhuomo's blood to heat up. He had a desire to fight. Seeing Zhongru also attack, he was not willing to fall behind. Just as he was about to act, he suddenly saw a blurry figure appear next to the green stand and was astounded. The Gui. Unusually, a Gui was completely armored with the undying ghost. The gray crystal bone armor covered all of her body and made her seem like a gray shadow. She appeared like a ghost near the green strand. Yet what she did next made Zhuomo jump in fight. She reached towards the green strand. Careful! Zhuomo's expression changed drastically. While he did not know what the green strand was, but its malevolent nature had already been displayed. This was something that could rival eldest Shixiang. They had only gone one round, it was still extremely dangerous. Agui's action was too rash. In a panic, Zhuomo shot towards the green strand and Agui in the sky. The green strand seemed to also detect danger and trembled fiercely. Several green lights shot towards Agui. Agui's body disappeared again and all of the green energies missed. Immediately after, Agui's hand suddenly appeared out of nowhere and grasped the green thread. The green strand froze. Gray mist flowed out of Agui's hand and the gray color quickly spread along the green strand at a visible rate towards both ends. In a blink, the green strand became half green, half gray. The presence of death seemed to have leaked out of hell. Even from far away, everyone still felt as though they were in a graveyard. The gray energy of death caused everything living in the surroundings to quickly wither. Zhuomo was astounded. It was the first time that he had seen this attack from Agui. The undying Shin power should not have such a thick gray and corroding presence. It was Agui's undying ghost. Zhuomo had studied the undying ghost for a long time, but it was difficult for him to understand many parts. He had never found this death energy before. Gray, death, dissipating, void. The feelings that this presence gave Zhuomo caused his heart to beat wildly. He was an experienced person. There had been countless fiend souls on the sealed extinction battlefield, but they did not give such a strong feeling of danger like this gray death energy. Zhuomo believed that even if it was just a brush of the gray mist, everything below 8th grade would immediately turn to dust and completely dissipate. At this time, a grieving consciousness begging for mercy suddenly appeared in everyone's minds. Everyone was surprised. Zhuomo's pupils suddenly expanded. Chapter 771, Treasure Seeking, Sect Leader. These are 3 of my good friends, Fairy Lining, Long Guang, Ruan Yuxian. With their help, I believe that there will be no problems with our trip to the ruins this time. Elder Su said respectfully. The sect leader's gaze swept across the trio. In front of him, the female and 2 males stood together. The female was beautiful with bright eyes, white teeth, and fine pale skin. One of the males was brawny and had skin as black as coal with bright eyes. The other was dressed like a middle-aged scholar. His hand held a fan, and his eyes flashed with light. The sect leader nodded inwardly. These 3 were strong, especially that middle-aged scholar who was the strongest of the trio. The other was probably just a sliver weaker than himself. Heartleaf Diana Temple had pitifully few experts. Other than himself and Elder Su, the others were not of any renown. But with these 3 strong reinforcements, he couldn't help but have more hope about the trip to the ruins this time. We will trouble you on this trip. If there are any gains on this trip, our sect will have other methods of compensation. The sect leader said seriously. Sect leader is too polite. The one that spoke was Ruan Yuxian. He waved his fan. His voice was light as he said, Brother Su and I have been friends for decades and are like brothers. We will not refuse Brother Zu's request. Also, we cannot turn down the offer that sect leader has made. Lining smiled. Long Guang was motionless like granite. The sect leader laughed upon hearing this. He had a good impression of Yuan Yuxian. He said, "Brother Yuan is charming. We are early, your residences have been arranged. If you have anything you need, please speak. If I am absent, find Elder Su. You are good friends, do not be courteous." Yuan Yuxian and the others stated their thanks. A disciple quickly ushered the three away. When there was only the sect leader and Elder Su left in the hall, the sect leader nodded in praise. "You did good regarding this matter. With the help of these three people, maybe we can come back with 1 or 2 treasures." Elder Su said respectfully, "This is because sect leader is decisive that this matter is successful. These three usually are proud. If they did not see sect leader's courage and wisdom, would they have agreed?" The sect leader was in a good mood. He said with a smile, "I know how hard you worked." Then his expression became stern. He said in a grave voice, "This time is an opportunity to us. This will decide if our Heartleaf Diana sect can rise. We must keep this a secret." An imperceptible light flashed through Elder Zu's eyes. He hurriedly said, "Sect leader is wise." Mo curiously played with the green strand in his hand. The green strand was extremely thin. When the 7-li strand was wrapped around his wrist, it was just a thin line and appeared like a green bracelet. After the green strand begged for mercy, a gooey's gray mist retreated back into the undying ghost. The green strand docilely landed in Mo hand. After playing with it for a long time, Mo still didn't know what it was. It was extremely thin and light, but strong. No matter how hard he pulled, it would not snap. What was most unique was the green crescent energy it could release. This kind of green crescent energy was powerful and unstoppable. It could match Wei Xing's sword energy. While he did not know what it really was, it was clear that this was a rare treasure. Its consciousness which begged for mercy shocked Mo. This immediately caused him to think of another thing he had, the 3,000 threads of worry. The 3,000 threads of worry could also communicate mentally. Mo tried to use his consciousness to communicate, but the effect was not visible. Yet when he switched to using Shun power, he seemed to see countless minuscule characters. This scene only happened once. Afterwards, no matter how much Shin power he channeled, it never appeared again. Even though it was just an instant, Mo still was able to memorize those characters. Mo then found that the green strand contained faint Shin power that allowed it to channel Shin power. Mo tried. The green strand could tolerate as much Shin power as he could put in. It had to be said that anything that could hold up under such pure Shin power was a treasure at present. This kind of treasure was suitable to forging Shin device raiments. Mo also suspected that this green strand was something from the ancient era. Mo's thoughts moved. A thread of Shin power was channeled in, and the green strand bracelet on his wrist suddenly released a string of green energies. They flew into the Black Sea. The green energy was an offensive Shin technique. While it was not a perfect Shin technique, Mo was certain of this. When the green strand was completely uncoiled to its 7-li length and its body floated in the air, an unique feeling came from the green strand on his hand. As its body continued to tremble, it was like an invisible hand that constantly absorbed power from the surroundings. Then through an unique transformation, the power was released as the green energy. Such a strange thing. Mo couldn't help but tsk in wonder. It was the first time he saw something so unique. The Black Sea flight route had such a dangerous thing. No wonder even Fanshu Xiozha would die. It was not hard to understand how a Fanshu Xiozha of the past that cultivated Ling power would be killed if they were the least bit careless. Mo's interest in the Black Sea grew. This unique and unfathomable black-colored sea was endless. Its environment was terrible and filled with danger. But from the opposite viewpoint, if it wasn't for this dangerous environment and those mysterious dangerous beings, this place would have been searched from top to bottom by those large sections. Dangerous things like the green strand that could release Shin techniques were an impossible obstacle to the Xiozha of the Ling power era. In other words, this meant that the Black Sea was a treasure trove that had not yet been opened. It was likely that other things like the green strand still existed. Those were all treasures. He also had a treasure seeker like Lil Black, a group of powerful sidekicks. If he missed this chance, it would be a great pity. Lao De Guang, who was restrained by Jinji, was completely docile. There was only one question rolling around in his mind. What were the origins of this terrifying group? He gaped when seeing the power of these people when they fought the Green Strand. He who had been able to earn the moniker, Shadowless Ghost Hand, and was definitely not a country bumpkin. But he only had one feeling now as he watched these people: he truly was an ignorant country bumpkin. When Wei Sheng's sword strike appeared, his mind became completely blank. He almost suffocated under the pressure. Even now, when he thought of that astounding blow, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Kunlun. The first thought through his mind was that only Kunlun had such terrifying sword xiu. Yet what puzzled him was Zhong Rush shout. He lived in the 9 Great Diana sects and was as familiar as one could be with the Diana cultivation. He knew the name of every Diana xiu that was slightly famous. When did such a great Diana xiu appear? After living so long in the 9 Great Diana sects, just his shout was enough to prove that this withered man was unfathomably powerful. No matter how hard he thought, he could not find this person. Had such a great Diana xiu just appeared out of nowhere? As to that brute force woman that had knocked him unconscious, he only had one thought: how fortunate he had not struggled back then. Lao De Guang carefully inspected the fleet. He found that all of the people who had not participated had calm expressions and maintained their calm from beginning to end during the encounter. They appeared to be experts. Thinking about his prideful expression when he had given his nickname, Lao De Guang felt embarrassed. Any of the people who had fought was enough to make the 9 Great Diana sects shake. Now a whole group had appeared. He didn't know to describe them. In any case, his thoughts of fleeing immediately dissipated. He did not feel that he could escape from this group of freaks with his measly skills. Or he had never thought there would be a day that he would admit his skills were measly. Crying on the inside, Lao De Guang had to consider an even more pragmatic question. How could he keep himself alive while in the hands of these freaks? A person who could receive the name Shadowless Ghost Hand might not be strong, but his mind was not lacking. Did these people come for the ruins from the start? The idea flashed through his mind, and he grabbed it. Such a group of freakishly powerful people was enough to destroy smaller sections. They would not appear at the 9 Great Diana sects without any reason. The more he thought, more he felt this was right. This definitely was the reason. He felt slightly reassured. To speak of nothing else, he believed not many could compare to him in terms of information. He was still valuable to this group. As long as he was valuable, he would have a chance of staying alive. Lao De Guang decided to find a chance to display his value. He had been secretly gathering intelligence on the ruins. They had not questioned him in detail last time, and he had kept many secrets. Come ask me. Come ask me. I have a lot of information. Lao De Guang screamed inside. 1 day passed, 2 days, 3 days. This group of people seemed to forget him. No one paid any attention to him. Lao De Guang felt puzzled. Had these people not come for the ruins? He found that Zuermo seemed to be search for something on the Black Sea every day. Was their goal the Black Sea flying route? The pitiful Lao De Guang would never expect that the fleet with Zuermo as its leader had entered a state of treasure hunting. Zuermo's greedy and desirous gaze wanted to sweep through all of the Black Sea. If he could find a few more treasures like the Green Strand, maybe he could gather the materials to forge a Shin device raiment. Lil Black's antennae finally started to wave furiously in one direction. Cheers immediately sounded through the entire fleet. Everyone was spirited. Even a person as calm as Zhong Ru became excited. The fleet quickly flew in the direction pointed out by Lil Black. Chapter 772, Glittering the Dark Night, was illuminated by the lights of the spells and Shin techniques. They collided in the air like fireworks, giving off great explosions that made people's ears hurt. Waves of air twisted the night, and everything in view seemed to be twisted. Inside the Jinji, everyone had an excited expression. Their faces were twisted, tendons bulging as they focused. Pay attention. Pay attention. First group, pay attention to cutting off the enemy's left flank. Second group, control your shun power, do not fight too strongly, pay attention to shifts. Fourth and fifth Jinji group, did you eat? Why are your attacks so weak? Attack at full power. I won't forgive you if you let even one escape. Ma Fan calmly observed the battlefield. His orders flowed into every corner of the Jinji defense line. Among Mo Cloud C's battle generals, there were several that were skilled in defense such as Shu Long's guard camp and Tang Fei's Tongzi battalion. Yet Ma Fan was the strangest one among them. He was the battle general most skilled in Jinji battle defense. Because he had successfully stopped Su Kong Temple's battalions in the past which unearthed Ma Fan's talent in defense, he had then been sent to Orchid Home Jie where he defended against Tian Huan's Gongya Shao Rong by relying on the Jinji forts. He had developed a great interest in how to use the seal formations and Jinji. Formations and Jinji were one of Mo Cloud C's developmental focuses. Zhuamo's turtle style had influenced them deeply. The interested Ma Fan spent a great amount of time in Golden Crow Cloud Island to study Jinji and formations. Any formation defense line in his hands would have astounding power. He was familiar with the weakness and strengths of every kind of seal formation and could use them. Also, his experiences as part of the offensive corps gave him a good understanding on the large-scale strategy of how to use seals and Jinji. His second-in-command, Nian Lu, was skilled in calculation and aided him greatly. Lei Peng was the head of the axe hidden in the turtle shell. The battlefield was silently changing. This kind of change was subtle and almost no one detected it among the chaotic battlefield. But Ma Fan detected it. The two enemy battalions were not in sync and an opening in their formation had begun to appear. Ma Fan's eyes suddenly lit up. His voice unconsciously increased, and his orders became brisk. First crux, attack at full power. Third group, delay your enemies. Seventh group, weaken your attacks, draw them in. Third group, sixth group, pay attention, prepare to kill. The members under his command were familiar with his change. Everyone knew that when Darren's orders became short, it meant that the crucial moment in the battle had come. Everyone felt their minds become alert, and the formation defense line immediately changed. However, it was also difficult to detect this change among the storm of spells. Waiting for his orders, Lei Peng was completely armored. The Mo Cloud Shin equipment covering all of his large and brawny body. He had a golden crystal sword in his hand. He appeared like a giant stepping out of a legend as he gave off a bloodthirsty and savage presence. Beside him, 200 elites were also fully armored and stood silently. He was prepared to fight. They've been drawn in. Big Peng kill? Lei Peng's eyes suddenly grew bright, his presence increasing. He lifted the heavy gold crystal sword as though it was nothing and changed towards the formation defense line like a furious rhino. Kill! The 200 elite moved at the same time and howled together, kill! The troops were like a sharp and heavy axe that was swung in an overhead blow at the prey that was caught in a net. The battalion that had been allowed in had never expected enemies to come charging out of the enemy defense line. Caught off guard, blood and flesh flew. Lei Peng was like an ancient monster, unstoppable as he charged every which way. The Shin equipment he wore had been designed and forged according to his strengths. It only had one use, to increase Lei Peng's power fivefold. Lei Peng was naturally endowed with astounding strength, and it became even greater after Mo matrices were engraved. Zhua Mo had switched out the spell he cultivated into a Mo skill a long time ago. After he used Mo embryo, he managed to cultivate a power-type Mo physique that increased his strength by multiple times again. Zhua Mo was determined for him to become a power-type. The Lei Peng of the past had a terrifying amount of strength, but after he cultivated the Mo Cloud Shin methodology, Lei Peng's strength went up another level. Lei Peng's Shin power was the simplest, most direct, crudest, roughest, and purest of power. He had a door-sized golden crystal sword in his hand. When he started to swing it, no one was able to stop his attack. He did not like using stabs. In his hand, the golden crystal sword was like a thick horse-chopping saber. What he liked to do most was chop. Usually, when his blow fell, the enemy, rider and steed, would be split in two. When he was really in his state, he would even use the sword like a metal staff, slapping and whipping. Anyone that was touched would fly out as though they were hit by a rhino. A large part of their body strangely caved in, as they bled for all orifices. Clang. Lei Peng's hand shook. For the first time since the battle started, someone stopped his sword. His eyes bled red. He saw the person that stopped him. It was one of the MO marshals. This time was when Lei Peng's fighting spirit was at its height. Even if the other was a MO marshal, he did not feel fear. With an angry howl, he swung the golden crystal sword up, and swung at the other, throwing himself behind the sword. Good attack! The MO marshal snorted. The spear in his hand suddenly turned bright silver, an extremely blinding point of light suddenly appearing in front of Lei Peng's eyes. This dot of silver energy came quickly like lightning. Everyone who was within 10 li was pulled towards this spear. Lei Peng's surrounding soldiers seemed to have a feeling that this dot of silver light had a strange magnetic force. Their bodies seemed to be flying uncontrollably towards the dot of silver like moths to a flame. A feeling of extreme danger suddenly took over their minds. They paled in shock. At this time, a wild, angry shout exploded in their ears. Lei Peng's eyes were wide in anger, his Shin equipment flashing with bright red light. Every drop of power in every MO matrix on his body, every muscle, bone and sinew, gathered on the golden crystal sword in his hand. It was a power pure and without any finesse. Only power. Boom. A thick drum-like sound echoed, like muffled thunder deep within the clouds. This could be heard by everyone within 100 li. A shocking, unstoppable wave of air swept in all directions like a wall of iron. All of the seal formations and Jinji within 5 li were destroyed. Those with slower reactions had to face the shockwave of air head-on and were immediately wounded. Those smarter let themselves fly out with the wave of air. There was nothing left within 5 li. The golden crystal sword was completely shattered. Lei Peng was thrown out like a sandbag. His Shin equipment was cracked all over, blood streaming out. He was covered in blood. At the place where the fight had been, the MO marshal stood holding the spear, motionless. The entire battlefield was silent. Everyone was stunned by this astounding collision. Suddenly, with a snap, a fragment fell from the long spear to the ground. This seemed to be a signal. Crack, the entire spear crumbled. The MO marshal was motionless as though he was made from stone. Everyone looked uncertainly at the MO marshal, their hearts in their throat. At this time, the MO marshal fell and crashing with a boom. Darren! Countless MO soldiers wailed in sorrow and disbelief. Yet the MO marshal who had fallen down did not respond. Haha, cuff. Lei Peng struggled up as he laughed wildly. He suddenly tore off the shattered Shin equipment he wore. People found out their shock that Lei Peng was covered in blood. They were even able to see the wounds that were seeping blood all over his body. Lei Peng seemed to not notice them. He took out a new set of Shin equipment and put it on, ignoring the blood flowing out of him. Then he took out a large axe from his ring that was the size of a door. Holding the large axe, blood pooling under his feet, Lei Peng walked forward. He suddenly raised the axe in his hand and shouted like a wild beast, "Kill!" Inside the seal formation, Nian Lu wiped away cold sweat. This guy's gone crazy today. Ma Fan frowned. He was the strongest and he saw the most. The MO marshal had been overconfident and hadn't expected that someone would take the path of only pursuing strength and even manage to reach such a level. Lei Peng's attack had gathered all of his strength. Even Boss, who was famed for his strength, would not choose to face it head-on. Power defeating all methods, Lei Peng was what the phrase referred to. In terms of cultivation and skill, the MO marshal was much greater than Lei Peng. Yet he chose to fight Lei Peng in strength. Wasn't that just looking for death? Ma Fan shook his head. He knew what the MO marshal had intended. The MO marshal had thought to increase morale through this action, but hadn't expected to meet such an unreasonable person like Lei Peng. Have him withdraw, Ma Fan said unquestionably. There was a 5 li opening in the seal formation Jinji. This meant that the previous arrangements had to be adjusted. A damaged defense line meant more weaknesses, but there was nothing to be done about it. High-level experts were enough to affect the state of a battle. Also, the enemy had lost a MO marshal. In terms of damage inflicted, they had benefited greatly. The enemy had not just lost a MO marshal. With the way that the MO fought, this meant that when the MO marshal died, the offensive ability of the battalion would decrease precipitously. The death of a MO marshal was like losing a flank, but in addition what it shook was morale. Morale was something intangible but of crucial importance to victory or defeat. The more intense the battle, the greater its effects. Even if the enemy still had one more MO marshal, Ma Fan perceptively detected that the enemy morale was now low and the other MO marshal was stunned by the results of this battle. He did not respond immediately. The enemy was in a short burst of chaos. Opportunity. Ma Fan unhesitatingly adjusted his orders. The chaotic MO battalions immediately were inundated with strong attacks. When the remaining MO marshal reacted, he found that the enemy had grabbed hold of his battalion. If they wanted to retreat, the fatalities would be terrifying. Damn it! How could it be like this? His complexion turned gray. Chapter 773 Enemy Encounter. After flying for a while, sounds of intense fighting could be heard from in front of them. Everyone was experienced in battle and could clearly recognize the sound of talisman attacks within. The entire fleet went on their guard. Were other people like them coming to explore this treasure trove? From the distance of the sound, the other was hundreds of li away. If it wasn't for the vast and open sea surface, the direction of the wind, and their sensitive hearing, they might not have detected it. The fleet was fast and the hundreds of li would be traveled in a few moments. The guards in the fleet were on their high alert and prepared to fight. When Zhou Mo and the others arrived and saw the situation, they were astonished. An mountainous one-eyed octopus was half exposed in the water. Several Xiozhe were furiously attacking the octopus. Is this really an octopus? Zhou Mo waved at the enormous body of the octopus and swallowed. Just the portion of the octopus that was out of the water was over 200 zhang. Those Xiozhe around it were small like flies in comparison. Just the part of the body that was exposed to the air was already so large. The enormity of its entire body could be imagined. Anyone who faced such an enormous monster couldn't help but inhale and feel as though it was an unwinnable battle. How long has it lived to grow so large? Tseng Lianer had an expression of awe. Having growing up in the Mo territories, she had seen countless dangerous beings, but it was the first time she was seeing one so large. Azwa, be careful, this octopus is at least tens of thousand years old. Weiss' warning caused Zhuamo's to shudder. Tens of thousands years old? 1,000-year tortoises, 10,000-year-old turtles. How come it is older than a turtle? Zhuamo's little heart shook. Any kind of being, if they lived for thousands of years, would become powerful. Those that lived for tens of thousands of years, and in such a terrible environment like the Black Sea, this guy's strength. Leave before it takes notice of you. Any being that has survived for tens of thousands of years will match you in intelligence. Pu Yao also warned. Pu and Weiss' opinions were in rare agreement and Zhou Mo immediately felt the urge to retreat. He liked treasure, but he would not gamble with his life. Also, the chances of victory appeared pitiful. The attacks of the Xiozhe did not cause any reaction when they landed on the octopus. The octopus had a layer of gleaming sticky fluid. When talismans hit it, they were deflected or they would glance off. Some would even be destroyed against it. Such a dangerous being should not be provoked. Suddenly, Wei Xing lowered his voice and said murderously, "Shitty, those seem like Kunlun sword Xiao." Kunlun. Zhuamo's body shook. His attention had all been on the octopus and, upon close inspection, he found that those people were Kunlun's sword Ziwi. Zhuamo's eyes suddenly became tinged with blood. Their grudge with Kunlun was irreconcilable. "Shixiang, this octopus is too strong. We cannot do anything to it." His voice was panicked. They had attacked this octopus for a full 2 hours and just left a few minor wounds on its body. Xiao Rujian was also slightly panicked inside, but he knew that he could not panic. He forced his expression to remain calm. "Everyone, do not panic. let's try other things. This is soul-luring fragrance, a treasure that I begged Master for a long time in order to obtain. Even the strongest monster, if it is afflicted with the soul-luring fragrance, will not recover its senses for 6 hours. Yu Ming said helplessly, I tried everything that could be done, they are useless. Xiao Ru Jian gritted his teeth. He turned to say to another Shi, and hi, didn't your master leave you 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill? Use that. And Hai had a pained expression. However, he had already done everything else that he could. Xiao Shixiang's soul-luring fragrance was extremely valuable, and if they wasted this opportunity, they would definitely regret it. This octopus was at least 10,000 years old, and its entire body was treasure. All right. Once and Hai made a decision, he did not hesitate. A yellow bead the size of a bean appeared on his hand. The bead flashed with color, and a faint layer of mist surrounded it when it was taken out. Xiao Ru Hai and the others became alert. They were knowledgeable. The 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill of their sect was a secret method. The number of elders with the power to forge this could be counted using the fingers. That faint layer of mist was actually the movement of countless ice-cold sword essences. And Hai's face flushed, the spell on his hand changing. He shouted clearly, Go! The sword pill turned into an imperceptible light that entered the body of the octopus. The octopus, who had remained unresponsive until now, finally reacted. It furiously twisted its body, shaking the water. Its enormous body contained endless power. Xiao Ru Jian and the other had expressions of joy. They knew that this was the 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill destroying the life inside the octopus. The forging process of the 100 fiend soul-destroying sword pill was extremely cruel. It needed to take the savage and hateful thoughts of Ling beasts raised, then using an Yin method it was forged into sword essence and sealed within the pill. It would destroy the soul of the enemy when used, a terrifying weapon. Xiao Ru Jian and the others hurriedly flew away to avoid being struck by the octopus. If they were whipped by such a large body, their bones might be crushed. After a whole hour, the octopus thrashing quieted. Xiao Ru Hai and the others had joyful expressions. Then they quickly found that they were still unable to cut open the body of the octopus. Also, the attacks they had used previously had used up much of their power. That sticky fluid on it is strange. Easy warned. At this time, Enhai suddenly noticed the fleet in the distance. His expression changed slightly and he said, Shixiang. Other people have come. Xiao Ru Jian and the others stilled. The dangerous reputation of the Black Sea flight route was known far and wide that there was basically none who dared to come. If it was not for their wealth of talismans and the increase in their strength in the last recent while, Xiao Ru Jian and the others would not dare to rashly go into the Black Sea. Xiao Ru Jian was the leader and organizer of this Black Sea trip. He had read in the memoirs of a Kunlun elder about the dangers in the Black Sea flight route. It had mentioned that the other had encountered an octopus that had survived for at least tens of thousands of years. Xiao Ru Jian was a smart and attentive person. He noted down the information and then started to gather and investigate the materials available on the Black Sea flight route. When he started to cultivate Shen power and thought back to the records, he had a daring idea. That octopus might be a being from the ancient era. Ancient and dangerous beings cultivated Shen power, which was so powerful it was not something that Ling power and Sword Xiu could defeat. He continued to research, which seemed to support his finding. There were some dangerous beings with Shen power which lived in the Black Sea. As his Shen power increased, Xiao Ru Jian realized that the chance of this was great. For Sword Xiu that cultivated Ling power, it was a place of certain death, but for the present group that cultivated Shen power, it was a land of treasure. He slowly prepared, found fellow disciples with the same intentions as him, and arranged the trip as well as the supplies they needed to advance another level in power. After preparing all of this, Xiao Ru Jian finally embarked on the trip to the Black Sea. According to information in the memoirs of the elder, Xiao Ru Jian's group quickly found that terrifying octopus tens of thousands of years. Everything after had proceeded smoothly and Xiao Ru Jian's soul-luring fragrance was especially effective, yet what happened next was like throwing a bucket of cold water on the happy faces of everyone there. They were unable to do anything against this octopus that had stopped fighting back. They could not do anything to it or fatally injure it. The soul-luring crystal was only effective for 6 hours. After the 6 hours passed, they could only flee. The fiend's soul-destroying sword pill made them happy for a moment, but then they found that they were no better off than before. At this time, they found Zhumo's group. Xiao Rujian's mind moved. He lowered his voice. This is an opportunity. We will trick them into helping us deal with the octopus. He then asked in a low voice, is Shimmy's circular fiend sword formation still here? He imperceptibly nodded. Here. Later, pay attention to my finger. If my pinky curls, Shimmy, immediately activate the circular fiend sword formation to trap them. The circular fiend sword formation is the masterpiece of He Shi Shu. That last, it came from Xiao Rujian's mouth murderously. And Wei said after a moment of silence, that is not very good. Xiao Rujian knew if he could not persuade everyone, this would fail. He thought and then said, then let's trap them first. After we finish, we will let them out and give them something in return. The other people's expressions eased and they nodded in agreement. Everyone knows the state of our Kunlun right now. This octopus is of crucial importance to the sect. Do not be soft-hearted at this time. Do not underestimate them. To be able to travel the Black Sea flight route, they must be capable. Xiao Rujian warned them. Shi Xiang is right. We will listen to Shi Xiang. Everyone thought of the recent sacrifices that countless elders had made with their lives, and felt ashamed. They had been soft-hearted about such an important matter. Seeing everyone in consensus, Xiao Rujian sighed in relief. He turned around, and there was a friendly smile on his face. He raised his voice to shout, friend, where are you from? Kunlun disciple Xiao Rujian greets you. This one has encountered some trouble here, will you be able to help? Kunlun will give you great thanks. Xiao Rujian was friendly but not servile. He believed that most people would give him some face based on the name of Kunlun. They also believed that anyone that dared to go against Kunlun had not been born yet. As expected, the other immediately responded. We have admired Kunlun for many years. Seeing everyone today, you really have the mannerisms of a famed sect. It is our honor to make your acquaintance. You are too polite, do not mention any thanks. As they spoke, the fleet flew near Xiao Rujian's group. Xiao Rujian's gaze swept the people on the ships and found that there was a heterogeneous group of people. He relaxed slightly and his smile grew. Chapter 774, Shock. What? Hai Jin Yun abruptly stood up with shock and fury on his face. His voice became sharp and ear-piercing. Defeated? You say they were defeated? 2 MO marshals fighting a guy that no one even knew the name of before, and they were defeated? Hai Jin Yun became more excited as he spoke, his gold face full of murderousness. His eyes were cold and his tone became cruel and emotionless. Where are they? Have them come see me. Hai Jin Yun and Shang Yusheng were responsible for leading this campaign. They could order anyone on the front lines of the MO Martial Alliance, and they could also punish anyone. 2 MO marshals leading 2 full battalions to fight a single battalion that didn't even have a top battle general. Even if the other had the seal formation defense line, their advantage was absolute. Hai Jin Yun was filled with murderousness. The 2 MO marshals had no reason to be defeated. In his view, there were only 2 reasons that they would lose with such a great advantage. One was because their forces were cowardly, the other because they were useless. Neither was a reason he could tolerate. The MO colonel bent his head and said with a hint of grief, the 2 Darren died in battle. Hai Jin Yun's expression froze on his face. At the side, Shang Yusheng also had a surprised expression. While the times had changed, and MO marshals were not as valuable as before, it was still rare for MO marshals to die in battle. The Shen era had just started, and there were just a rare few outstanding geniuses that had caught up to the last era's power. The great majority of people were still struggling at the lower levels. A thin camel was still bigger than a horse. While MO marshals' position had fallen from being the best fighters to being first-class fighters, they were still strong. Died in combat, That meant they had not retreated. The death of any MO marshal in combat could not be dismissed. They were not surprised by Quan Pei's death because his opponent had been Bihan. MO marshals did not have the ability to fight back a top battle general. But Ma Fan, who was he? This person was not among the 10 great generals of the Xiuzhou world, and the amount of intelligence they had about this person was pitifully small. They only knew he was skilled in defense and had followed Zhuo for a long time. They didn't know anything else. Was the Ma Fan battalion a decoy? And the one in charge was actually Gong Suncha? Even now, Hai Jinyun could not believe this. Shang Yusheng suddenly spoke, his tone as slow as usual, described the events in detail. Thus, they formed a seal formation defense line, and Ma Fan battalion went on the defensive relying on that. The two Darren discussed and thought that we had the advantage, so they attacked. Because the enemy battalion did not have many people, the two Darren chose 6 positions to attack. Each good for breakthroughs to put pressure on the enemy. When the battle started, we quickly gained the upper hand. However, the enemy was hardy and the fighting was intense. This lucky survivor showed sorrow, his tone deep. After about an hour, the battle proceeded about the same as any offensive on a city. The two Darren thought that the enemy might have used up its energy and decided to put on more pressure. At this time, the other finally showed a weakness. Yu Darren is the strongest in breakthrough and he did not hesitate to lead his elites to charge in. No one expected that it was the enemy's trap. There were demons here. They were truly demons. The MO colonel's tone became excited, his lips trembling, his body shuddering and his eyes filled with shock. Hai Jinyu and Shang Yusheng exchanged a look. Both of them felt intimidated. Calm down, Hai Jinyun shouted sternly. The MO colonel seemed to wake up and had an ashamed expression. However, his voice still trembled. There was an elite troop waiting in the trap. When Yu Darren and the others charged in, this elite force suddenly charged out. The soldier at the front could not be stopped. He was ferocious, and no one could stop even one of his attacks. Yu Darren found the situation was dangerous and went out to intercept him. The two met in a single clash. The MO colonel's body trembled even more violently. And then? Hai Jinyun couldn't help asking. And then Yu Darren died. 2 streams of tears fell from the MO colonel's eyes. Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng changed expression. The two exchanged a look and saw the shock in each other's eyes. To kill MO Marshal with one attack, what kind strength would it take? They had never thought that someone would cultivate such a freakish path. Was that person wounded? Shang Yusheng couldn't resist asking. The MO colonel worked through his sorrow and tried to think back. That person was also injured and covered in blood. However, this person was courageous and strong. He did not retreat. He changed his Shin equipment and continued to fight. When Darren died, everyone's morale plummeted. The battlefield was chaotic, and most of us were quickly killed. Then Darren? How did he die? Hai Jinyun asked urgently. The death of Yu Darren was a great shock to He Darren. The enemy was very strong and stuck themselves to He Darren's battalion. He Darren's battalion seemed to be stuck in a bog and could not escape. The situation was chaotic at the time, and our battalion was scattered. No one fully knows what happened. I heard an enormous explosion, and then realized that He Darren most likely. Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng sank into silence. The hall was so quiet that the drop of a pin on the ground could be heard. What the MO colonel had described was an unparalleled shock to the two. The two of them were in great turmoil. One Ma Fan was so strong. Then what about the other battalions in Bihan's command? They found now that they had made a grave mistake. They had kept their eyes on Bihan and dismissed the other battalions under his command. A person's reputation, a tree's shadow, the halo of Bihan being a top battle general had masked the strength of the other people. Psychologically and strategically, the MO Marshall Alliance had focused all of their power on Bihan. If Bihan's other battalions had such power, then the two of them had a bad feeling. Hai Jinyun, Shang Yusheng, and Bihan as well as others probably would never have thought that their battle was being observed by so many important people. MO Cloud Sea was small but it was strong. They had not made any great moves in the last few years, and their suddenly move this time naturally attracted the attention of many factions. The intelligence on Ma Fan's battle immediately ended up in the hands of the major factions through a number of channels. Gongya Xiaorong carefully read the report. His calm expression changed slightly. Xixiang, what do you think? Li Xian'er had been paying attention all this time to Gongya Xiaorong's expression. Gongya Xiaorong's return had caused a significant ripple, but compared to his glory days of the past, no one had much interest in someone that had been defeated. But inside Tianhuan, Gongya Xiaorong's status had not changed at all. Both the sect leader and Li Xian'er, the future sect leader, could see that the setback this time had caused Gongya Xiaorong to transform. When Gongya Xiaorong led the remains of his battalion across mountains and oceans, through countless difficult obstacles to return to Tianhuan, the sect leader only said, Xiaorong's accomplishment will be limitless. Gongya Xiaorong seemed to be a completely different person. There was none of his past pride, arrogance, and imperiousness. He was low-key and tolerant, uncaring of the gossip within the sect. He also became unprecedentedly hardworking. He mastered Shen power at an astounding speed and adjusted to fighting with Shen power. The sect leader's trust in him did not decrease at all. He still had great authority. He usually stayed in the sect and silently started to rebuild his battalion. With the remains of his past battalion as the skeleton, a completely new battalion took form as he cultivated daily. Li Xian'er saw everything. She knew that Xiaorong Xixiang only needed a chance for the world to see him again, a chance for him to make his way back into the top battle general rankings. He was already prepared. So when he saw the slight surprise on Xiaorong Xixiang's face, she was slightly surprised. Xiaorong Xixiang had become low-key and humble in these years, and was a composed person, giving the impression nothing could cause him to change expression. The surprise flashed across Gongya Xiaorong's face before his expression recovered. He has become stronger. Stronger? Li Xian'er paused. I fought against him in the past. Gongya Xiaorong's voice was still cock. He is much stronger now. Compared to Xixiang? Li Xian'er deliberately asked. Gongya Xiaorong smiled but did not speak. Xixiang, tell me. Li Xiao'er grabbed Gongya Xiaorong's sleeve and furiously shook it. The two had grown up together and were like siblings. Affection and helplessness flashed across Gongya Xiaorong's face. At the same time, a burning fighting spirit flashed through his eyes. He said calmly, Gong Sun Cha is really strong. Li Xian'er was puzzled. They were clearly talking about Ma Fan. Why was Xixiang talking about Gong Sun Cha? Ma Fan and the other battle generals were taught by Gong Sun Cha. This is why I say that Gong Sun Cha is strong, Gongya Xiaorong explained. No one can compare to Gong Sun Cha in this, not even Xue Dong. Gong Sun Cha is equal to 2 top battle generals. Li Xian'er saw Xixiang admired Gong Sun Cha so much and pouted, then why is his ranking lower than Xue Dong? At this level, the difference between the two is minuscule. Unless they fight, no one knows who will win. Even if they fight, there are many factors affecting victory and defeat that are beyond the control of people. There is no meaning in stronger or weaker. Battle generals are of strategic value. However, Gong Sun Cha is strong in that he is skilled in training battle generals. These battle generals might not become top battle generals, but they can become first-class battle generals. For example, this Ma Fan. With this strength, he is definitely first-class. First-class battle generals are not so attention-catching as top battle generals, but for a top battle general, the one with more first-class battle generals under their command will have more of an advantage, and have more tactics to choose from. Look, other than Ma Fan, he has trained many others, for example, Xu Long, Tang Fei, Sherdong, and Ajago. These are all first-class battle generals. This is like playing with cards. As you play, without realizing it, his hand of bad cards has become a hand of good cards. This is what is terrifying about him. Gongya Xiaorong said meaningfully. Chapter 775, Act. The fleet quickly flew next to the big octopus under Zhuo Mo's orders. Hey, is this guy asleep? Zhuo pretended to be curious and drooled as he came close. A hint of dislike flashed through the eyes of He Zi and the others. They were from large sects, and instinctively disliked the common presence that Zhuo had. Xiao Rujian did not show any of disdain and said with a smile, "We have stunned it, and its senses are blocked. However, this guy has thick skin, please help us. We will thank you well after this. We Kunlun are honest, do not worry." Stunned. Zhuo's expression was curious but slightly worried. Will it suddenly wake up? Such a big guy, if it wakes up, none of us will be able to escape. Xiao Ruhai felt pressed for time, but did not show it. He knew that he had to ease these people's worries for them to work hard. He explained, "Our sect's soul-luring fragrance can seal the senses any monster no matter how strong it is, much less this octopus. We have at least 4 more hours. In these 4 hours, it definitely will not wake up." So powerful! Zhuo had a shocked expression. Its soul-luring fragrance. Pu Yao was familiar with his past opponent. Maybe not 4 hours, but definitely 2. Receiving the information he wanted, Zhuo's smile became even warmer. "Alright, let's start." Xiao Rujian was overjoyed and said loudly, "Everyone, let's go together. After this, no one will leave with empty hands." Zhuo pushed up his sleeves and raised his arms as he shouted like a hoodlum, "Brother, it's our honor that a large sect like Kunlun is paying attention to us. If we don't work our hardest, we will disappoint these friends from Kunlun." Xiao Rujian and the others had small smiles. This person had a low-class presence, but he was perceptive and knew his own measure. He was filled with respect towards Kunlun. Xiao Rujian elegantly bowed. "This one will first thank you, brothers. If you need our aid in the future, please speak." Zhuo laughed. "Ha! Kunlun friends give us so much face, we cannot falter. Brothers, start." Xiao Rujian finally sighed in relief. They were finally going to start. Yet before he could react, a sharp coldness locked him in place without any warning. What was going on? He was astounded. The sharp killing intent burned as though he was within a smelting cauldron. The person who had looked like a low-class hoodlum seemed to completely change. His hand flashed with a golden energy that brimmed with murderousness. Damn it! They had been fooled. His head rang, but he reacted quickly. He was furious. "You dare!" The flying sword in his hand stabbed towards the other like lightning. In such an emergency, he did not spare any energy. A green sword energy lit up, and the space around him rippled and twisted. Shin power. The green sword energy contained pure Shin power. The Kunlun sword essence with Shin power was even more powerful, more varied, and harder to predict. Xiao Rujian was like an unpredictable shadow that almost broke free of Zhuo's presence lock. Zhuo's eyes lit up with threads of golden scripts. His Sun Shin power erupted, and the Shin technique was immediately completed in his hand. Sun Shin Thorn. A blinding spike of light like a ray of the sun flew out of his hand and shot at Xiao Rujian. The golden light accurately collided with Xiao Rujian's sword energy. Bam! The green sword energy was shattered like glass and turned into blue fragments. The fine fragments formed a little twister in the air, but did not affect the spike of light at all. The light spike was a bit dimmer, but it still flew at an astounding pace towards Xiao Rujian. Xiao Rujian paled. How was it possible? How was it possible? Everyone that happened in front of him made him almost unable to believe his eyes. His sword energy had been so easily shattered by the enemy. In Kunlun that was full of geniuses, Xiao Rujian had always been one of the top. He had a glorious history in the sect competitions. But there was no time to think in this situation. He was a decisive person. He knew that this was a time of life and death, and bit into his tongue. Blood that contained Shin power spread through his mouth. His eye flashed with a layer of green energy. The sword scripture he cultivated was Kunlun's 3 pure sword scripture. This sword scripture had not been important in the past, but in the process of being adapted for Shin power, the elders found to their shock that this minor sword scripture was actually very suited to Shin power. The status of 3 pure sword scripture rose. Many of Kunlun's disciples now cultivated this sword scripture. Xiao Ruhai was one of the leaders. He spent large amounts of time and energy on cultivating this sword scripture. He became the disciple that was publicly thought of having the most skill with 3 pure sword scripture. Vast Shen power flooded through his body. He felt he was unprecedentedly powerful. This technique risked his life but was able to increase his power in the short term, but the harm would be significant. Even if he won, he would have to rest and recuperate for at least half a year. Xiao Rujian had learned this move long ago, but had never used it. Resting for half a year versus losing his life, without needing to think, he knew what to choose. His mind was unprecedentedly focused. He pushed away all stray thoughts. He did not ask who these people really were, or why they had suddenly attacked. There was only that golden thorn in his eyes, the Sun Shen thorn. The lightning-fast Sun Shen thorn became extremely slow in his eyes. He could see every detail. The Sun Shen thorn was unlike their sword energies. It was so dense it was tangible, seeming to be made from gold. The thorn was covered in fine, exquisite patterns, and the ancient sun diagrams could be seen. The clearer he saw it, the more he could feel the great power it contained. How was the other able to do this? He lost some of his focus. Making Shen power tangible was one of the more common skills right now, but this Sun Shen thorn that seemed to be masterfully carved showed that the enemy's level at manifestation was far greater than he could imagine. His mind was clear. In just an instant, he knew that there was an uncrossable gap between himself and the enemy. Yet the vast power in his body broke free like a vicious beast. Strong fighting spirit rose from deep within. His death would not be a waste if he fought such a strong opponent. The terror deep in his eyes disappeared. Xiao Rujian suddenly shouted angrily. He released his restraint over the Shen power in his body. The unrestrained Shen power rampaged left and right in his body, like a caged tiger. Xiao Rujian's body seemed to be on fire. The Shen power that existed in every inch of his body was ignited and furiously burned. A layer of angry green energy appeared on the flying sword on his hand. It flickered like a green flame. Xiao Rujian's eyes were deep like the ocean. He raised the flying sword covered in green flames and stabbed. The green Shen power flaring around the sword undulated in ripples as it traveled from the hilt to the tip of the sword. When the flames reached the tip of the sword, the green energy that had finished preparing reached its greatest strength. It broke free of the sword tip and at an astounding speed flew towards Mo snap. The flying sword in Xiao Rujian's hand cracked. Xiao Rujian's killing move had not finished. A stab. Another stab. His movements were peerlessly fast. In a blink, 3 successive stabs were completed. The killing move of the 3 pure sword scripture, 1 sword transforming to 3 pure. The 3 green sword energies flew towards Mo in a straight line. The flying sword in Xiao Rujian's hand lost all of its light. When the last stroke was finished, the sword shattered into countless pieces. The first green sword energy crashed onto the Sun Shen thorn. Bam! A burst of gold and green energies appeared in the air. Mo's expression became serious. A beast fought the hardest when it was trapped. Even with his strength, he did not dare to be careless. At this time, the sword energies changed again. The third sword energy suddenly sped up and thrust into the second sword energy. The 2 sword energies merged into one. If Xiao Rujian's sword energies could be described as crystal-like before, then the sword energies now were like a furious wave of green sword essence. Countless sword essences were gathered within in layers that moved restlessly in waves. With every wave, it became stronger. What surprised Mo was the rate it rose in power was very high. In a blink, this sword energy had multiplied in strength like a monster revealing its figure. Compared to Xiao Rujian's previous sword energy, this was tens of times stronger. Mo shouted, his Sun Shen power vibrating. His expression was serious, golden scripts rising off his body and making him appear domineering. When the golden scripts appeared, Mo's presence suddenly changed. A vicious and primitive presence covered the entire battlefield as though there was an ancient monster descending to the mortal realm. Xiao Rujian looked in disbelief at Mo. This was A skill from the ancient era. The ancients' way of fighting had simple moves without too many flourishes. Their bodies were even stronger than those wasteland beasts. They had endless power, they could pluck suns and moons from the sky, they were the strongest of that era. That was an era which was like a riddle, one that countless people yearned for. Zhuo was like a hero walking straight out of an ancient myth, like the totem warrior that the Sun tribe worshipped. An irresistible dominance, and a masculine and strong energy that was like the light of the sun which people could not avoid. Zhuo's right hand flashed with bright golden energy. The golden scripts on his body slowly circulated, the light on his right hand flickering, and forming a simple axe. Zhuo raised the golden axe of light high up. His entire body leaned forward slightly. He seemed to channel all of his strength into the simple axe he had raised. His eyes were wide, every muscle in his body was tense. A power to uproot mountains and an unrivaled presence. Just like the Sun tribe totem warrior of tens of thousands of years ago swinging the Sun Shin axe. Just as domineering like the Sun tribe totem warrior of tens of thousands of years ago. Looking down on all beings like the Sun tribe totem warrior of tens of thousands of years ago. The only difference was that this was his era. Strong belief and furious power was channeled into the Sun Shin axe in his hand. It swung downward. Chapter 776, Wei Sheng's sword. The green sword essence wave and the Sun Shin axe collided together in a show of brute force. Boom! Terrifying power exploded. The light was blinding like the sun and illuminated the world. When the light faded, Zhuo's great figure appeared. He held the axe of light in his hand, his pressuring gaze was almost tangible as he slowly swept his gaze across the battlefield. He held Xiao Rujian's body in his left hand. Xiao Rujian had no signs of life. The light in Zhuo's eyes gradually faded, the axe of light disappearing. The powerful presence he gave off also disappeared. He once again appeared like a common person. He breathed out lightly and shook his head. That Sun Shin axe was still a struggle for him. It was not as easy to use as the Sun Shin thorn. He could manifest that Sun Shin thorn, to the point that it seemed to be engraved with scripts, but he could only form the basic shape of the Sun Shin axe. Even the shape was lacking, not to mention the sun scripts. The Shin techniques of the ancient era were so simple. The more complete the technique, the more exquisite their shape was, and the more powerful they were. He was just starting out. Shaking his head, he looked towards everyone else. An ambush. Those prepared against those unprepared, He Zi and Hai and the others were just normal Kunlun disciples. They didn't have any ability to fight against Wei Sheng and Zhong Ru. An Hai's killing move, the 100 Fiend soul-destroying pill, had been used already. Zhong Ru's wish power wrapped around him and An Hai immediately lost his soul. He Zi's circular fiend sword formation just been activated as it was easily defeated by Wei Sheng's sword strike. Before they acted, Zhuo had decided to not leave even one alive. Naturally, the Kunlun disciples' things were cleaned out. However, Zhuo did not have the time to inspect them now. His attention was all on this ancient octopus. Eldest Shixiang, you try. Wei Sheng nodded. The fight just now couldn't even be considered a warm-up to him. This mountainous octopus monster made him feel pressure and excited his fighting spirit. The god-killing blood sword in his hand, he flew in front of the octopus and stood gravely. Lightly raising the blood-red sword, Wei Sheng's expression was solemn. His presence changed, and the air around him seemed to ripple in an indescribable manner. Marks of blood appeared on the sword. Wei Sheng's presence continued to rise. He narrowed his eyes. He was like an unsheathed sword, full of edges and soul-shaking. Thick sword essence gathered around him. The sky above his head quickly became dark. The black sea under his feet rippled outwards, as if escaping from the danger. A deep hole formed in the water underneath Wei Sheng. Standing as straight as a sword, Wei Sheng suddenly opened his eyes. Hiss! An indescribable hiss. The void sword essence around Wei Sheng gathered quickly towards him. He seemed to be the eye of the storm. Hiss hiss hiss. The sharp sword essence was like countless little swords that flew and howled around Wei Sheng's body. The humming rose in volume and surged like the tide. Wei Sheng lightly flicked the sword in his hand. Virm. Like streams and rivers flowing into the ocean, the sword essence flooded towards Wei Sheng's blood sword furiously. The blood sword hummed in excitement, the marks of blood suddenly growing bright and filled with an eerie power. Wei Sheng did not seem to detect the excitement of his blood sword. His expression was determined, and his eyes like bloodied pure glass. He inherited the power of the god-killing blood sword, but he had not been assimilated by the god-killing blood sword. His steel-like resolve allowed him to control this terrifyingly large power. A strange layer of red tinged Wei Sheng's view. In his eyes, the blood sword in his hand was like an unwilling beast that constantly struggled. Feeling the world spread, Wei Sheng's expression was devout and focused. No matter how the blood sword in his hand struggled, he did not seem to feel it. The eerie and frantic power battered him along the sword hilt. Its bloodthirst and madness made it unusually powerful. Wei Sheng knew that if he let go at this time, the blood sword would definitely release an astounding strike. It had drank the blood of countless warriors, it had consumed innumerable fiend souls, it had grown through tens of thousands of years, it was powerful on its own. The frantic power battered Wei Sheng's mind in waves. Wei Sheng's blood and Shen power came from the blood sword, and was restless as well. It was a terrifying monster. If it was discontent, it would cause a backlash. Wei Sheng did not let go. His expression was still devout and focused. Under the increased mental battering and emotional assault that came with each wave, he guarded his sword heart. Countless scenes flashed through his eyes. He saw the motivating gazes of sect leader and the Shirshu, he saw the Wukong mountain of the past, he saw his own hardship as a sword servant, he saw himself drinking under the moon with Suemo. He moved through the scenes, they became dimmer and dimmer, and he seemed to be walking in a dark empty space. Alone, without direction, without any light. Was that his future? A strong feeling of loneliness rose. His mind became puzzled and blank. Yet when his gaze landed on the sword that the figure held, all of the emptiness, loneliness, and bewilderment immediately disappeared. His body filled with power. The figure moving forward in the darkness used his sword to strike apart the darkness and void, used his sword to cut out a path. The darkness and empty space retreated like the tide. Friendly and warm figures appeared around him. Wei Sheng seemed to wake up. A warm smile unconsciously rose on his mouth. The mental assault of the blood sword seemed to instantly become much weaker. No matter how it struggled, Wei Sheng's sword heart was like an unmoving rock. Just like that figure in the dream state, Wei Sheng raised the blood sword in his hand and moved it downwards. A red sword energy flashed. Vast sword essence charged. Boom! The sky seemed to shake. The water in front of Wei Sheng immediately disappeared, and a ruler-straight passage that was dozens of li long appeared. In the 5 zhang-wide chasm, there wasn't a drop of water. The black rock at the bottom of the ocean was exposed to the air. The walls of water on the 2 sides of the passageway were 500 zhang tall and as smooth as glass. The chasm stretched into the distance. The octopus was fully exposed. There was a straight red blood line through the middle of its body. Pia! The enormous body of the octopus fell from the air to the bottom of the chasm in 2 pieces. Poof! The blood that should have gushed and sprayed instead exploded into a mist. Wei Sheng's blood sword shook. The blood mist was drawn into the blood sword and turned into a pillar of blood as it was absorbed. There wasn't a drop of blood left in the octopus. At this time, the walls of water started to crumble. The ruckus was like tens of thousands of horses galloping at once. Everyone, including Zuemo, was stunned by Wei Sheng's strike. Eldest Shixiang, really, was too much of a freak. Suddenly, Zuemo shook, the octopus. Little Mo Guess eyes were immediately taken over by countless Jingshi. He appeared like lightning next to the octopus corpse. Without a second word, each of his hands pulled on one half of the octopus. Golden scripts appeared on his body, his Shen power rippling, his eyes wide, his muscles tensing. He breathed and shouted, "Ah ah 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 ah." Rise. Under the motivation of Jingshi, the power that Zhou Emo displayed far surpassed his power when he had been fighting Xiao Rujian. Zhou Emo seemed to be possessed by a god, an ancient monster. His tendons bulged, he panted as he pulled the two enormous pieces and slowly rose. He finally pulled them up onto the transportation ship before the water passageway collapsed. Wei Xing, who had just finished his strike, saw this, and the devoutness and concentration on his face disappeared. His mouth was open wide, the muscles in his face frozen. He looked dazedly at Zhou Emo's superhuman action. The blood sword in his hand couldn't help but tremble. Everyone was stunned. In this moment, the entire place was silent. There was only the sound of Zhou Emo panting like the bellows of a furnace. He collapsed and leaned against the two mountains of meat, completely out of energy, with a dumb smile on his face. "Did you find their origins?" The sect leader of Thunder Sound Temple said. "We are not sure." The disciple responsible sweated. Looking at the unhappy expression of the sect leader, the disciple hurriedly added, "From the present clues, it is very likely they come from Mo Cloud Sea." Mo Cloud Sea? The sect leader's expression turned grave. But it is not easy to determine their true identity. They did not fight, and we could not prove that Lao Deguang was on their ships. We searched through their fleet and did not find him. But then when we closed the transportation formation, they flew into the Black Sea flying route. They are highly suspicious. The sect leader remained silent. A long time later, the sect leader spoke. "This matter will end here." The disciple responsible stilled, and then had a surprised expression. The sect leader seemed to not see it and said, "You may leave." The disciple shook and reacted, bowing hurriedly. This disciple bids farewell. After the disciple left the hall, a youth with an impressive presence walked out from behind the drapes. If the disciple that had been here before saw this, they would have been greatly surprised. Yang Yuanhao, the best battle general of the 9 great Diana sects, Yang Yuanhao. No one knew that Yang Yuanhao had sneaked back to the sect without anyone's knowledge. "Sect leader, are you worried about Mo Cloud Sea?" Yang Yuanhao also had some surprise on his face and asked. The sect leader's gaze was deep. Seeing Yang Yuanhao, he had a small smile. "Yuanhao, you do not understand?" Yang Yuanhao shook his head. "Mo Cloud Sea will be our ally for a long time. However, we have not discovered if they are from Mo Cloud Sea or not. They could go through the Black Sea flight route, huh?" The sect leader huffed a laugh. "They aren't just Mo Cloud Sea, they are most likely Wei Xing's group." Yang Yuanhao thought of another problem. He frowned. "Mo Cloud Sea knows our situation very well. How long has it been since the ruins appeared? They have already learned the news. For any battle general, it was a taboo for one's enemies to know too much about one's situation." The sect leader shook his head. "It may not be the case. Do not forget the matter regarding Heartleaf Diana sect. Mo Cloud Sea are not timid people." Yang Yuanhao nodded. "Heartleaf Diana sect did a stupid thing." The sect leader said, "What is the situation on the front lines?" "Kunlun has been very silent recently. It is slightly unusual." A hint of worry flashed through Yang Yuanhao's eyes. A hint of cold flashed through the sect leader's eyes. Silent? It probably was them in the shadows creating the storm right now. Some people are always short-sighted. When they see that there is nothing to be worried about at the moment, they will want to make a fuss. "I summoned you back here because I wanted to ask your opinion." Yang Yuanhao had been thinking on the way back. The sects had been very active recently, which had affected the unity of the 9 great Diana sect. A divided 9 great Diana sects would not even hold against one enemy attack. He suddenly thought of Mo Cloud Sea that was just mentioned. His eyes lit up. Maybe we could borrow some power. Chapter 777, Mountain of Meat. They had really profited this time. Looking at the 2 mountains of meat in front of him, Zhou Emo felt as though he was in dream. This gift from Kunlun really was too valuable. Ancient beasts like this were rare and irreplaceable. If the Kunlun disciples hadn't used the soul-luring fragrance, Zhuo guessed that even all of them working together would not have been able to defeat this terrifying large thing. It would be a problem if they would be even able to escape alive. He had really not expected this prophet. Kunlun were really good people. Everyone moved around the two mountains of meat in curiosity. It was rare to see such a large ancient beast. They basically only existed in legends. Because they were worried about encountering other strong beasts on the Black Sea flight line, the fleet did not dare to move around randomly on the route, but quickly flew towards their destination according to the steward's instructions. Only Zhuo could butcher the monster. He was the only one here skilled in forging. Only he knew what was useful or not. If the conditions allowed for it, Zhuo wanted to put the two mountains of meat into his ring and then take it back to Mo Cloud Sea. That would allow it to express its greatest value. However, even though Zhuo's ring was top tier, it could not hold two such enormous mountains of meat. Zhuo worked hard for 3 days. The one responsible for guiding his hand was Wei. While it had been many years since he had last dismembered an ancient beast, he was the only one that was familiar. This octopus was treasure, profit, great profit. Zhuo hummed a tune, his movements happy and rapid. The octopus was made up of treasure. Zhuo carefully gathered its slime. This was a rare treasure that could absorb enemy Shen attacks. What was greatest about it was that it could absorb Shen power attacks up to a certain degree. Zhuo tested it and it was so. Only when the Shen power reached a certain level of purity and the Shen technique reached a certain level of skill would the effect be overcome. In reality, it was the first time Zhuo had heard of a material with this property. Just this one trait determined its value. In the entire process, Zhuo was on high alert and fearful that he would miss a drop. He decided when he would forge his new Shen raiment, he would brush on this astounding Shen liquid, one coat after another, 100 times. Kunlun Shen power? Tian Huan Shen power? What of it? They wouldn't even create sparks when they hit his armor. The more he thought, the happier Zhuo felt. Kunlun was a good child, a good child. Zhuo started to hum again. Other than this, the octopus eyes were dried and turned into 2 black beads, 1. However, these 2 beads were a bit large, about the same height as Zhuo. He didn't know the use of the black beads, but he had tested it with Shen power. Zhuo found that when Shen power entered, it seemed to disappear. It could absorb Shen power. This was the only attribute that Zhuo had discovered up until now. The time did not allow for him to slowly examine it. He could only throw it into his ring. He had a feeling that this definitely was something good. The skin of the octopus was hard. Normal flying swords could only leave behind a faint mark. In the end, it had been Wei Xing with his god-killing blood sword that was able to cut it. Undoubtedly, the grade of this octopus skin was astounding. Zhuo guessed that it should be top level. For the great majority of Shen device raiments, high-level hide was essential. A Gui's undying ghost was a rarity in its composition. Most importantly, the surface area of this hide was almost unimaginable. Even if it was not able to be all used in Shen device raiments, if it was used to forge Shen equipment, they would be higher in grade than normal. Thinking about if he gave every one of the core members a pseudo-Shen device, and they were all outfitted, the offensive ability of Mo Cloud Sea would skyrocket. The teeth and bones of the octopus were all of extraordinary quality and could be used to forge Shen equipment. What made Zhuo feel was unique was the dense suckers on the tentacles. The largest of these suckers were the size of a person, the smallest just the size of a thumb. There were 1,200,000 of them. Zhuo was very interested in the suckers. They had a unique effect. Once they came into contact with something, they would instinctively absorb the power and life force of the target. It was very devious and terrifying. The bigger the sucker, the stronger its absorption ability. Zhuo knew that the suckers only had a lingering effect because the octopus was dead. If the octopus was alive, this ability would be much stronger. He thought about the many suckers. Everywhere they passed, all life was stolen, all of the blood, flesh, and energy was sucked into the octopus. This octopus had lived for tens of thousands of years. He didn't know how many lives it had consumed. So terrifying. Zhuo rejoiced. If there wasn't Kunlun's soul-luring fragrance, The possibility that the fleet would have survived would have been low. There was a kind of pattern that Zhuemo had never seen before on the suckers. Zhuemo suspected that it was this pattern that allowed the suckers to have such an unique ability. Zhuemo decided to spend some time to study it. He put all the suckers away in the ring. They piled together into a little mountain. Zhuemo knew that this was something good, but he didn't have a complete idea on how to use it. Everything that was useful was harvested and put away. But there was still a mountain of meat left in front of them. This was truly a mountain of meat. All of it was left behind after cutting up the octopus. The blood of the octopus seemed to have been completely sucked dry by Wei Sheng's god-killing blood sword. There wasn't even a drop of blood left. All of it was clean meat. Piled up there, it did not reek of blood. What to do with the meat? Zhuemo felt stuck. There was just too much. Eat it, Wei suggested. In the ancient era, if such a monster was killed, the entire tribe would divide it up and eat it. Each piece of flesh of such a monster that has lived for tens of thousands of years has been refined for countless years by Shen power. They contain astounding power and will be of great help to you if you use it. Really? Zhuemo had a suspicious expression. Want you know after eating? Wei was discontent. Zhuemo tried to use fire to roast a piece of meat. When he took a bite, his eyes widened. He felt an extremely faint thread of Shen power spread into his body. Good thing. He pointed at the mountain and said through a full mouth, "Eat, eat, eat." The other people saw this and started to act. They used different methods, but when the meat entered their mouth, they all became alert. Shen power. The meat actually contained Shen power and they could absorb a portion of the Shen power. This discovery caused everyone to turn crazy. Right now, other than Zhuemo, Wei Sheng, and Ague, who were special exceptions, the other people only had one path to increase Shen power: cultivation. This was the first time they encountered another way to increase Shen power. The meat mountain in front of them caused everyone to have a feeling they were smashed by happiness. Without needing Zhuemo to call them over, everyone started to eat furiously. Yet they found quickly that while they ate at as fast as possible, it was nothing compared to the 300 zhang mountain of meat in front of them. They could not eat all of it. The greatest tragedy in life was when you find that eating meat could increase Shen power, and there was a lot of meat like this in front of you, but you could not finish it. Most of the people with Zhuemo had grassroots origins, of impoverished backgrounds. They had endured many great hardships and hated wasting anything. How could they allow such a tragedy to occur? The group cursed the world. All of them had the same thought. No matter what, before they reached Lotus Sutra Temple, they had to finish consuming this meat mountain. Therefore, they started to think of solutions. In order to increase their appetite, they started to expend their Shen power, fighting, furiously cultivating, practicing. They invented all kinds of methods. If other people saw this, they would feel as though people's intelligence was limitless. For example, Wei Sheng quickly created a highly efficient method. He used the god-killing blood sword to absorb the Shen power inside the meat and then pass it into his body. The speed of absorption was high. However, the god-killing blood sword was only interested in blood and not at all in the meat. This caused Wei Sheng to have to search for beasts to feed it blood and coerce its cooperation. Zhong Ru's method seemed much gentler. He summoned all kinds of Buddhas to absorb Shen power and then merged it in his body. Zhuemo was undoubtedly the brightest superstar of eating meat. All the little ones around him had extraordinary appetites, and there was still the glutton black gold seal soldier. Zhuemo was inspired by the suckers and his rate increased greatly. When the meat entered his stomach, the energies and Shen power would spread in threads into his body. Yet even so, when they flew out of the Black Sea flight route, they just barely managed to consume this enormous mountain of meat. All of them felt as though they had finished a difficult mission. Even composed people like Wei Sheng and Zhong Ru smiled. More of them felt lingering trepidation. In a very long time after, when any person mentioned the words, "eat meat," they would be attacked unanimously by everyone around them. It was like a war. Even a glutton like the black gold seal soldier felt fear at hearing eating meat. Yet everyone's strength had increased enormously. The Shen power contained in an octopus that had lived for tens of thousands of years was enormous and terrifying. While they could not absorb all of it, and it was divided among so many people, for these people that had just started cultivating Shen power, this increase was still astounding. Nothing excited people more than strength. They were full of anticipation about the upcoming trip to the ruins. Even though they knew that they would likely face experts from Kunlun and Tianhuan, they did not feel any fear. As expected, they would have meat if they followed boss. They looked at Zhuo with admiration. Some of the more honest people looked around as they traveled, muttering, "Another one, another one." As the fleet came closer to the ruins, they could clearly feel the number of Xiuzhe increasing in the surroundings, including experts. Yet what no one knew was that Zhuo, who was hiding in the ship, had made a new discovery. One, previously stated as a one-eyed octopus. Chapter 778, Bihan. Ma Fan's battle was beautiful, Shi Dong said with admiration. Winning a difficult battle was a great aspiration for any battle general. Also, this victory raised Ma Fan's fame and placed him in the ranks of the first-class battle generals. There was competition among the battalions of Mo Cloud Sea as well. Shi Dong and Yi Ling's Gray Camp was not the top ranked among the many battalions. Shi Dong was exceptional, but in Mo Cloud Sea, which was full of talented people, he was not the strongest. There was a handful of people with comparable strength. However, he did not feel any jealousy towards Ma Fan. Ma Fan deserved this. They had fought many times before, so many times it was innumerable. He knew Ma Fan's strength well. If Ma Fan was given a defense line, his strength would double. This was Lil Miss Darren's words, without any exaggeration. Ma Fan's achievements in other areas could only be said to be average, but once he gained control of a formation defense line, his win rate would become terrifying. No one liked to fight a defensive battle against Ma Fan. However, Shi Dong was full of confidence in himself. Ma Fan had a field he was skilled in, and he had his own specialization. Bihan Darren's order is really strange. Yi Ling saw Bihan's orders and couldn't resist commenting. Shi Dong looked into the distance and said softly, "I think I have guessed Bihan Darren's general goal." He tried to make himself look calm as normal, but the anxiousness in his eyes exposed his true thoughts. Bihan Darren was too daring. Was this the confidence of a top battle general? What kind of confidence was this? You have guessed Darren's thoughts? Yi Ling was slightly shocked. However, he was not surprised. He knew that his strategic vision was lacking compared to Shi Dong. Shi Dong shook his head. Not just me, everyone else should understand by now. Why is that even this conversation like a riddle? Yi Ling said helplessly. Look at our position, then Tang Fei and a Zhagu. Shi Dong's hand moved above the gem app, and an invisible line caused Yi Ling's eyes to light up. He was still slightly puzzled. I cannot see anything. Shi Dong did not waste words and continued. Us, Tongzi Battalion, a Zhagu Battalion, appear as though we have no connection to Bright Mountain Jie, but look here. On the Jie map, he found where Gray Camp was, and with it as the center, drew out a circle. Then he found the two other battalions and drew out circles around them. Now look, Shi Dong said calmly, while we are not directly connected to Bright Mountain Jie, but the area that we are active in, and the position that we guard are like 3 signal flares. They will attract the battalions around us, and we have blockaded the path of the enemy attempting to reinforce Bright Mountain Jie. I seem to understand after you say this. Yi Ling's expression was puzzled. However, what is the use to stopping the reinforcements? Bright Mountain Jie still has Hai Jinyu and Shang Yusheng. Ma Fan defeated the 2 Mo generals, but he definitely took great losses and will not have forces to and help Bihan Darren. You should also know of Hai Jinyun and Shang Yusheng. They are rare talents that have risen recently. Bihan Darren alone. 3. You mean? Yi Ling's eyes widened. He looked in disbelief at Shi Dong as though he saw a ghost. We were wrong about Bihan Darren's intentions from the start. Shi Dong tried to make his voice calm, but it was still filled with emotion. From the start, he decided to fight 1-on-2. We all were wrong. Then he said self-mockingly, this probably is the difference between us and top battle generals. We have to bow to his self-confidence. Yi Ling's eyes were wide, and he was unable to speak for a moment. This. He stammered for a while but could not continue. Shi Dong shook his head, the shock in his eyes gradually disappearing. He recovered his usual calmness and composure. Since Bi Han Darren dares to plan this, he must have some assurances. We will first carry out our own mission well, we cannot drag down Bi Han Darren. A moment later, Yi Ling finally inhaled out a long breath. This is mad. Too mad. It was rare for Shi Dong to see Yi Ling lose his composure. He couldn't help but flash a grin before he resumed his usual coolness. Don't worry for Bi Han Darren, let's first think of a way to finish our mission. Ma Fan gave a beautiful performance. If we do not finish our mission, we will be laughed at when we return. Yi Ling heard this and nodded seriously. All hail the king. We will do all we can in service for our king. We cannot be laughed at. Lei Peng and Yen Lu have the worst mouths. How do you think we should fight? I have an idea. Shi Dong's eyes flashed with a cold light. Bi Han Darren's idea is too dangerous. Tang Fei frowned. When Bi Han's new orders were delivered to her hands, Bi Han's intentions finally became clear. She had to admit that Bi Han Darren's goal was completely unexpected. Miao Jun also jumped in fright at Bi Han's intention. So mad. 1 against 2. I don't know what to say. He doesn't need to risk this at all. We are strong. While we are low in numbers, we are all elite battalions, there will not be much of a problem to take down 100 energy Jia, unless Darren has bigger ambitions. Tang Fei continued. She said in an uncertain tone, what will be even bigger? Miao Jun frowned and thought hard. He was thinking of what reason would cause Bi Han to use such a dangerous plan. Suddenly, the two of them raised their heads and looked at each other at the same time, seeing the disbelief in the other's eyes. Bi Han. Too dangerous. Ajagu looked at the order on his hand and murmured to himself. Bi Han Darren's intentions had completely been made apparent, there was nothing hard to guess. However, Ajagu found it hard to understand why Bi Han would plan such a risky battle plan. Ajagu did not know Bi Han's strength well, but he knew that Bi Han Darren was much stronger than him. He was also a gold battle general, but he was nothing compared to a top battle general. Bi Han Darren's idea? Suddenly, his eyes lit up. A daring idea that was also impossible flashed through his mind. Was it? His target is us, Shang Yuxing said slowly. His speaking speed was slow, almost pausing between each word. Hai Jin Yun did not have any impatience. He smiled coldly. He really is ambitious. Kissing, as expected of a top battle general, look, his boldness is something that we cannot match. His goal is not Bright Mountain Jia, it was us, from the beginning, Shang Yuxing said. She cannot be mobilized, the only ones that the alliance can move to match him are the two of us. He's too proud. If he used the time difference and attack us separately, he might have a chance. But we have met up. He wants to use his 1 battalion against us. He's too naive. Hai Jin Yun's voice was full of scorn. The two of them were new talents of the alliance. Among the new generation, they were strong and major figures. The two of them were thought of genius youths that would possibly become top battle generals. No one doubted this. People believed that if they had a few more years, the duo would definitely become top battle generals. Right now, they were not top-ranked battle generals, but the difference was minuscule. One of them alone might not be able to beat Bi Han, but the two of them together, they had the advantage of numbers and they worked well together, they could only be stronger than Bi Han. Hai Jin Yun's scorn was not just due to arrogance. Shang Yusheng's expression was still serious. He said in his uniquely slow manner, if this is not the case, will we fight him? Hai Jin Yun stilled. He thought and then he shook his head. No, if I encounter him alone, I will definitely avoid him, wait to meet up with you, before searching him out for a fight. Maybe this is what he wants, Shang Yusheng said. Hai Jin Yun was not stupid and reacted quickly. He said suspiciously, you mean that he definitely has created a situation to make us feel as though we have the upper hand? Isn't that the case? Shang Yusheng asked in return. Hai Jin-yun was silent. Bi Han had been the one that had arranged the present situation. If Bi Han had deliberately done this, there was only one possibility. Bi Han had absolute confidence in himself. This is not possible. Hai Jin-yun couldn't help but say, I will admit that Bi Han is strong, but I don't believe that he can fight against the two of us in an open battle. Not even Xue Dong can. Do you feel that the two of us cannot win against him? I also do not believe it. Shang Yusheng shook his head. But I believe that Bi Han definitely has powerful moves that we do not know of. Hai Jin-yun nodded. You are right, we need to be careful of his schemes. His expression became grave. But I believe even more that strength is the most important in open battle. We need to keep an eye on the soldiers. Maybe spies have made their way into the battalions? And, you are right, use inactivity to deal with all changes. Keep an eye on the ranks, we will not panic, and there will not be any problems. Shang Yusheng also threw away his worries. The two of them were among the strongest battle generals of the Mo Martial Alliance. Even though there were some areas of Bei Han's plan that they did not understand, they would not become timid because of the other's feints. What any famed battle general believed in was himself and the battalion behind him. Shang Yusheng laughed, fighting spirit in his expression and his tone excited as he said, Yes, as long as we do not panic, he will not have a chance. Who's afraid of who? A top battle general is nothing, that's just because we have not shown our might. I want to see just how much water there is in this top battle general. Suddenly, a wave of urgent alarm sounded. The two exchanged a look, their expressions serious. Bi Han had come. Chapter 779, Song Ling Xue in the darkness of the night. Song Ling Xue was silent and motionless like a puppet. Her pretty face showed faint sorrow. She threw herself into the darkness, she lost her usual aura of authority and restraint. She sat there like a normal 17-year-old girl and stared at the distant mountains. The string of lantern lights were like the stars in the sky. She thought of the past years, their troubles, and how sparse the lights had been then. The present Song family was much more prosperous than before. She did not feel much pride, only exhaustion. At this time, she had shed her determination. She was like a helpless kitten curled in the corner. Darren. The hoarse voice of a male sounded in the darkness. She did not raise her head. She was too familiar with this voice, so familiar that she did not need to pretend in front of him. She gave a light sound of acknowledgement. Yesterday, someone visited Second Elder, and Second Elder saw them off at the gates, the male said in a low voice. His usually calm voice was filled with indescribable fury. Third Elder's son was accepted into the first Yao art house. Song Ling Xue's lips moved. She said indifferently, Isn't that what he hoped for? His prodigal son has always been a sickness on his mind. Chief Elder most likely cannot withstand the pressure for long, the male said in a low voice. I heard Chief Elder's steward say that they received a threat from an unknown person yesterday. The target is Chief Elder's granddaughter. Chief Elder may likely remain quiet on this matter. All of them betray me, Song Ling Xue laughed. At this time, her cold laugh showed age that did not match her real age. The male was silent for a moment before he suddenly spoke, Darren, flee. Flee? Flee where? Song Ling Xue was bewildered. What about the Tsong family? What about the Merchant Association? How can we care about that now? The male's tone became panicked. If Darren does not flee, it is likely. What's there to be afraid of? Song Ling Xue smiled desolately. Do not worry, I am worth more to them alive than dead. No matter if it is to take over the business association and the Tsong family or to become a tool to earn them money, they all need me alive. The male was silent. Song Ling Xue murmured to herself, the elders are too timid. If they could harden their resolves, the business association would be able to bargain with these people. Darren, what if we throw away the business association? The male suddenly asked. Throw away the association? Song Ling Xue stilled. Then her brow furrowed and she sat up. Who told you this? Yesterday night when I was spying on Second Elder, I was caught by someone when returning, the male said calmly. Ah. Song Ling Shui was astounded, the sternness and authority on her face disappearing. She asked urgently, "Were you wounded?" The male's heart warmed. He shook his head and said, "No, the other only asked me to tell you this message." Song Ling Shui's expression eased slightly, but her heart trembled. Uncle Yan's strength was unfathomable in her eyes. No matter how difficult the mission was, Uncle Yan would finish it perfectly. Uncle Yan was the last support that her father had left her. If it wasn't for Uncle Yan, she would not have taken charge of the Tsong family so quickly. While Uncle Yan had never said how powerful he was, she could hear from between his words that Uncle Yan had been a powerful expert in the past. What is their background? Song Ling Shui asked curiously. Her mind moved quickly. She did not fear the addition of a new power. In truth, any change for her in this hopeless situation was good news. Because the situation would not be any worse than now. I could not see. Uncle Yan's tone was low, and filled with a rare wariness. The other is familiar with the underground world. I encountered at least 3 people that match me in strength. Those in the underground world that have such strength will not be unknown, yet I cannot identify these people's origins. Song Ling Shui became alert. She was intelligent and Uncle Yan's words contained a great amount of information. The other was strong, and with so many experts, it would not be a minor faction. The other wanted her to give up on the business association, they clearly wanted her ability at management. Giving up on the association, but not the Tsong family, showed that the other had confidence they could guarantee the safety of the Tsong family. This astounded her. If this message had not been carried to her by her most trusted Uncle Yan, she definitely would not believe it. Uncle Yan had watched her grow up and the two of them were like father and daughter. He definitely would not betray her. Who was the other? She knew the reason that she felt hopeless at the families pressuring her because they had the support of the Council of Elders. They were not people that she, the Tsong family or the business association could fight. This mysterious faction was so confident. She felt it hard to believe. Are there any underground factions so strong? She murmured to herself. No. Unexpectedly, Uncle Yan answered. His tone was filled with certainty. The underground world is not large, and not as mysterious as the rumors say. The relatively major underground powers are closely connected to the Council of Elders. Then where do they find the confidence to make this offer? Song Ling Shui was puzzled. Uncle Yan hesitated for a while before saying, they may not be an underground power. Song Ling Shui stilled. How so? Uncle Yan explained. In truth, underground factions are fangs and teeth. Some major factions use them for convenience in spying and dealing with matters hard to openly resolve. If someone does it in the shadows, it is much easier to handle some matters. Most of the Yao underground powers have great backgrounds and support. Sometimes, they are responsible for establishing contact. If I am right, and this develops, the faction behind them will be revealed. No wonder the underground factions can do as they wish. Song Ling Shui finally realized and said, that is a misunderstanding. Actually, they are restrained in many aspects, Uncle Yan said. They cannot go too far in many matters. The higher-ups will turn a blind eye to some matters and not pursue them in order for them to survive. If the higher-ups order something, they have to complete it. The competition between the underground factions is cruel. The other wasn't an underground faction. Song Ling Shui became excited. Even though the situation was already like this, she still did not hope to fall to being on the side of an underground faction. The darkness was a road of no return, especially to a clan. Can Uncle Yan find out the origins of this underground factions? She asked in anticipation. If they could find the origins of these people, maybe they would find a clue to the people behind them. This was a deadlock. If someone disturbed it, maybe it would offer them a chance. Song Ling Shui's spirit rose again. Uncle Yan looked at Song Ling Shui, whose fighting spirit had come back, and nodded seriously. I will try. Zhuamo's finger constantly moved through the air like a pen. He would occasionally stop and think for a while. He had been in this crazed state for a few days. He constantly swiped and drew. Other people knew that he was considering a problem and did not disturb him. Zhuemo, who had ate meat until he almost went insane, originally prepared to refine the Shun power he had just absorbed. Yet when he was in the cabin and preparing to refine the power, that unique pattern from the green strand reappeared once again in his mind. This time he saw it more clearly. He discovered many places he had not seen clearly last time. He was overjoyed at these discoveries. Zhuemo was sure now that this pattern was a Shun glyph. For people now, Shun glyphs were not something far away. Tianhuan had been the first to study Shun glyphs, and they were the ones with the most understanding of Shun glyphs. Tianhuan's Shun power was based in Shun glyphs. As Shun power developed and more people cultivated Shun power, people's understanding of Shun glyphs increased. If one said that the core of Ling power was seal scripts, then the core of Shun power was Shun glyphs. Shun glyphs were not as mysterious as people imagined, but it was still the most profound and attractive mystery. Even Tianhuan, who had learned the most about Shun glyphs, had only mastered no more than 5 complete Shun glyphs up until now. So when Zhuemo realized what this pattern he could not understand was, he immediately became excited. Zhuemo knew a bit more than other people about Shun glyphs. In ancient tribes, each tribe would have their own Shun glyph. For example, the Sun glyph of the Sun tribe and the Green Vine glyph of the Green Vine tribe. These Shun glyphs weren't just related to their Shun power, they were also related to something else, ancient Shun devices. Ancient Shun devices were not the same as the present Shun device raiments. The forging of ancient Shun devices were done by the greatest members of each tribe, imprinting the Shun glyph into the device. The present Shun device raiments was something that Zhuemo had based more on forging methods before he had comprehended a complete Shun glyph. Almost all of the Shun device raiments followed Zhuemo's example. Zhuemo had mastery of 2 Shun glyphs. One was the Sun glyph, the other the Green Vine glyph. Of the two, he was more skilled on the Sun glyph and less skilled with the Green Vine glyph. However, even though he mastered the Sun glyph, there were still many places he did not understand. The difference between Shun glyphs and seal scripts was that every part of the Shun glyph had to be comprehended. If one could not comprehend it, they could not use it or draw it. A completely new Shun glyph immediately caused Zhuemo to become excited. While he could not comprehend it right now, the value in a new Shun glyph still excited Zhuemo. As these years passed, and people pursued Shun power by exploring ancient ruins, all kinds of Shun glyph fragments appeared. On the black market, a rubbing of a Shun glyph part was worth cities. Only those that comprehend Shun glyphs could make imprints, and it was a great burden to the imprinter to make an imprint. Due to this, the number of Shun glyph imprints on the market was very small. Zhuemo quickly was immersed in the comprehension of a new Shun glyph. He tried to draw it according to the image in his mind. Suddenly, his fingertip felt heavy and gave him a different feeling. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.